And we should be live. Welcome everyone to 2024. Happy New Year. Oh, amazing, isn't it? So today with me... Yeah, go ahead, Elise.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So yeah, with me only Elise and Melting Man, because we have a bit of a... We're still on Christmas break, I suppose. I just came back from vacation, so we're not quite ready for a proper video. But instead, I prepared a bit of a unfinished Dissected, because I had some thoughts on Sonic Frontiers I wanted to explore. Oh man, I'm so terrified I said Sonic Forces, because I keep mistaking Forces and Frontiers over each other. And I haven't had time to really check my video yet, since I'm still in the middle of editing it, so that's gonna be fun. So yeah, you just have to forgive me if Forces and Frontiers are gonna be used interchangeably.
Well, at least you're not calling it Sonic Farts.
There you go. Could be worse.
Yeah.
Well, hey, if just getting the names mixed up is, like, your biggest problem, I think you're doing okay.
Alrighty. Hopefully, yes. But yeah, the plan for today is we're watching a 53-minute video I prepared, and after that we're going to chat about it afterwards, because Elise herself happened to want to talk about Frontiers herself, about topics that are kind of close by, kind of adjacent to my video, so I figured, let's just add the two, and we have ourselves a 2-hour stream, why not? And Melting Man is here as police officer to make sure we don't say any bad things about IDW Comics or Ian Flynn. He's our expert.
Yeah, stop right there, criminal scum!
There you go. But yeah, and our other usual guests and Dissected pals may be in the chat, I hope. I mean, I hear Lucas is sick, so he wasn't going to be here at all to begin with, so I hope he gets better. And yeah, Sala, you and Sylvia might be around too to help you all. Wish you all a Happy New Year. So, gonna waste a little bit of time and then we'll start our video. Or shall we just start now? Don't want to make it too late. Yeah, grab some popcorn, I suppose, grab some drinks, and here comes my edited Dissected video. That's not quite finished yet, but whatever. Ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between, I owe you an apology. I'm so sorry. As a result, I'll promise you, I'll change. From now on, the things I've been doing, I will continue to do. Thank you. You might be confused right now. Roger, you dope, what was that? What exactly did you apologize for? You never made that clear. How are you gonna change? How is doing the same thing you already did an improvement? Yes, well, welcome to Sonic Frontiers, amazing storytelling of nothingness. Haha. Look, let me lay out the purpose of this video first. Since with YouTube fan nerds, the point is usually, this is bad, or this doesn't make any sense. Big scathing takedowns on whatever media has ruffled our feathers. But let me make one thing absolutely clear. This video has one very specific purpose. Explore why Sonic Frontiers' storyline feels kinda empty to me. Sonic Frontiers really feels empty. I mean, the gameplay has hits and misses. Cyberspace is cool, and although it takes me quite a while to get used to the controls, as demonstrated in my embarrassing video a few months back, and Supersonic and fights are neat, the main game really feels empty. Like a cell phone game of you doing the same jobs over and over and pointless collectibles, not helped by the enormously dull environment the game takes place in. But especially the story, and that's what we're really discussing here, the story. Great, big, important things happen in it, technically. We learn a lot of backstory of the lore. There's a giant monster to be taken down. The characters go through some character development, it seems. Yet at the end of the game, despite all the sad, epic music and sunsets and characters staring at each other meaningfully, as if we went through a massively rich and rewarding journey together, I feel utterly empty when the credits roll. I think Sonic Frontiers is playing a trick on us, and I'm going to explore it. Specifically this video, I want to talk about Tails, but especially Knuckles and Amy's alleged character development that they're going through in this adventure. This game spends a huge amount of time on characterization, more than any Sonic game before. Mostly because, well, in terms of story, nothing else really happens. There's no supporting characters to meet, little plot happening, practically no events or set pieces. Almost the entirety of the running time of the game is Sonic having a quiet chat with his friends or worst enemies, having a squabble about their feelings, their theories on alien civilization, and everyone endlessly reminding Sonic that there's things for him to collect. Collect the gear so you can collect the Coco, so you can collect the purple... Sorry folks, I think we have audio technical problems, because I sound horrible robotic, so I have to figure this out. Melting Man, can you entertain our guests while I try to figure out what's going on? Or did you have problems? Or Elise? I guess we're all gone.
Yeah, no, I was on mute.
Let me check.
Sorry, did you have audio problems with the video?
No, I mean I can hear it just fine.
Mute.
Yeah, I can hear it just fine. It's
What?
just the quality sounds like you're just speaking through a megaphone.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Try mute. Wait, it doesn't mute. Okay, 1 sec. You guys keep talking.
We keep talking. My apologies. This is going well.
Improvise. Improvise the show. That's today's live stream.
There you go. Hey, we're still on.
I'm horrible at improv.
I'm gonna play the video again just to see if, how it works now.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between, I owe you an apology. I'm so sorry. As a result, I'll promise you, I'll change. From now on, the things I've been doing, I will continue to do. Thank you. You might be confused right now. Roger, you dope, what was that? What exactly did you apologize for? You never made that clear. How are you gonna change? How is doing the same thing you already did an improvement? Yes, well, welcome to Sonic Frontiers, amazing storytelling of nothingness. Haha. Look, let me lay out the purpose of this video first.
Okay,
Since
the audio
with
was much
YouTube
better.
fan nerds, the point is usually this is bad or this doesn't make any sense. Big scathing takedowns on whatever media has ruffled our feathers. But let me make one thing absolutely clear here. This video has one very specific purpose. Explore why Sonic Frontiers storyline feels kinda empty to me. Sonic Frontiers really feels empty. I mean, the gameplay has hits and misses. Cyberspace is cool, and although it takes me quite a while to get used to the controls, as demonstrated in my embarrassing video a few months back, and Supersonic and fights are neat, the main game really feels empty. Like a cell phone game of you doing the same jobs over and over and pointless collectibles, not helped by the enormously dull environment the game takes place in. But especially the story, and that's what we're really discussing here, the story. Great, big, important things happen in it, technically. We learn a lot of backstory of the lore. There's a giant monster to be taken down. The characters go through some character development, it seems. Yet at the end of the game, despite all the sad, epic music and sunsets and characters staring at each other meaningfully, as if we went through a massively rich and rewarding journey together, I feel utterly empty when the credits roll. I think Sonic Frontiers is playing a trick on us, and I'm going to explore it. Specifically this video, I want to talk about Tails, but especially Knuckles and Amy's alleged character development that they're going through in this adventure. This game spends a huge amount of time on characterization, more than any Sonic game before. Mostly because, well, in terms of story, nothing else really happens. There's no supporting characters to meet, little plot happening, practically no events or set pieces. Almost the entirety of the running time of the game is Sonic having a quiet chat with his friends or worst enemies, having a squabble about their feelings, their theories on alien civilization, and everyone endlessly reminding Sonic that there's things for him to collect. Collect the gear so you can collect the cocoa, so you can collect the purple coins, so you can collect Kale's emeralds, endless, pointless video game MacGuffin things to collect. So naturally, the little bits of characterization we do get from the main cast is the most interesting part of the story. At least until the main plot of the nameless aliens fighting Space Hitler finally takes center stage in the last 10 minutes of the game or so. Now, after I finished the game at first, I thought this is the rough story for as far as your companions are concerned. So after Sonic and the gang arrive at Starfall Islands, the security system of the island traps them all inside of cyberspace. Cyberspace is a mental landscape where the characters go through their worst memories and traumas, which blocks everyone from escaping, overwhelmed by their mental shortcomings, except for our hero, because he's so pure and strong of heart and blah blah blah. After helping the others out of their mental prison, the side characters all become very introspective, feeling guilty of shirking their duties, not working hard enough to avoid tragedies in the past. They become self-reflective. After a pep talk with Sonic, they find their purpose back in life, and with their newfound confidence, help out Sonic in his time of need, and give him the strength to destroy the End, the evil entity the entire security system was built for. Then the game ends on a bittersweet note, where Tails, Knuckles, and Amy all say they have to leave Sonic for a while, and have to be on their own, for self-discovery again, and become better people. The end. As in, end of the story, not the stupid name, the stupid bad guy. I think that's as much as I said in my first Dissected, and it's wrong. I was wrong on a few parts. Yet nobody called me out on it, which is weird since usually everyone is more than happy to call me out when I screw up. So evidently a lot of people made the same mistakes I did. Let's take a closer look to what actually happened, shall we? Let's start with the situation our heroes find themselves in, their cyberspace prisons. I was fully convinced this is a mental trap. It's their traumas, their insecurities, their mental blockades keeping them trapped. The more confidence you have, the better you are at fighting it, hence why Sonic and Eggman can move freely through cyberspace while the others are more helpless. Now, we never see what cyberspace is like for Tails, Knuckles, or Amy. Only Sonic, for whom it's just chunks of meaningless gameplay floating in limbo, and Eggman, who's farting around on an empty slab of pavement surrounded by meaningless limbo. Very impressive pavement random shapes in limbo, because Eggman is endlessly celebrating how incredible brilliant the random shapes in limbo are and how it's gonna help him in his master plan to take over the world! Somehow. But yeah, let's take a look at what the other characters' cyberspace prison was like. Because even though we never get to see it, they actually do describe their mental worlds. Amy says,
Before you freed me, I couldn't see or hear anything clearly. It was like looking into a kaleidoscope that was always shifting.
so no, it's not a mental blockade, it's just an endless parade of meaningless random shapes and colors. So basically any random modern Sonic level. But yeah, I was wrong. Whoops. Why did I think it was some sort of mental torture prison? Well, because it would fit so well with the story. I mean, we are told that the cyberspace world is made out of memories of the people trapped in there. Everyone acts very melancholy during the game, and everyone is much more introspective than usual. So it all feels like they must have had a Ebenezer Scrooge moment and revisited their Christmases of the past or something. It would give the story a nice punch, nice flavor to it. But instead, no, nothing really happened. I guess they were just very bored and became introspective to pass the time. I mean, it's not necessarily wrong. It's not a plot hole or anything. It's just boring. The former explanation would have given the story more of a sense of purpose. An emphasis to their character development, that it was kick-started by something meaningful. And now it just sort of happens, because they're bored, I guess. Hence causing Frontiers to feel so meaningless. But yeah, I was wrong. Or was I? Let's take a listen to what Knuckles has to say about his mental prison, eh?
Miserable. Like a living nightmare. It was the most alone I've ever felt. And at the same time, I was drowning in terrible visions and emotions.
Well, Dread, he says something completely different. So Knuckles did have a nasty experience, it feeling like hell, and giving him an undefined sense of dread. And what does Tails say?
I was lost in cyberspace. I was confronted by another version of myself. He said I was just a follower, that I couldn't think or act on my own.
So Amy had nothing, Knuckles has a vague sense of doom, Tails says he met an evil twin of himself in cyberspace who did lay out the insecurities in his face. So I was right! Or was I? I don't know anymore. So it seems that for every single character we see their cyberspace, it has a completely different experience. Sonic just has gameplay, Eggman has the most amazing empty slab of concrete and limbo he ever saw in his life, Amy had a parade of colors, Knuckles is overwhelmed with hellish but meaningless visions, and Tails is confronted with an evil version of himself representing his shortcomings. The one and only character who confirmed my initial theory. Or hypothesis, or whatever you call it. Right, so this can be explained. I mean, this is a mental world. There's no strict rules for what happens. Perhaps everyone's personalities manifest in each of them having a different experience. Maybe, since we later learn Sage is responsible for trapping them there, she somehow constructed specific traps for each, what she thought would be the perfect punishment. I'm sure we can have Ian Flynn flap down and give us a quick explanation for why it's different for everyone. However, let me make one thing absolutely clear for this video. I am not really interested in answers, in the how and why. This video is not really about figuring out the truth. This video is about Sonic Frontier's story feeling empty and meaningless. So regardless of the how and why, here's my problem. By lack of clear functionality of cyberspace, the story feels meaningless. Think about it. Cyberspace and how it affects the characters is one of the central story beats. It directly kickstarts each of the characters' personal journey. It's what corrupts Sonic and becomes the primary obstacle for him to overcome. Eggman doesn't do anything in the game. The end doesn't do anything until the last 10 minutes. And Sage, while half-heartedly sending the security system after Sonic, she's mostly struggling with her own storyline. So cyberspace in and on itself is really the main antagonist for most of the game. And if the game stuck to one specific way how cyberspace functions, or at the very least made the reason why it's different for each character central and part of the plot, the story would have been more interesting because each story beat had more emphasis. We know why everyone is thinking what they're thinking, how it works, what needs to happen. But as it is now, cyberspace is kind of completely random. So when emotional moments come from this, like Sonic's death and resurrection, when his friends sacrifice themselves from cyberspace doom, it feels hollow and random because the mechanics haven't been laid out. I don't know what Sonic losing himself in cyberspace means. I don't know how the cast knows they can sacrifice themselves to resurrect Sonic. What it means for them to sacrifice themselves, what they lost, what they gained, how they suffer. It means nothing to me because nothing's really laid out. I vaguely understand that losing Sonic to cyberspace is a bad thing, and his friends resurrecting him is a good thing, but that's all the meaning it has. Cyberspace lacks punch. It lacks personality. It lacks an identity. It's kind of vague and just like a bunch of stuff happens. Yeah, cyberspace is kind of a sense of dread and doom. It's kind of nothing. It's kind of Green Hill Zone-y. It's kind of whatever. Roughly, I understand what's happening and why it's happening. I understand the point, the plot, but I don't really feel any attachment to it. It ain't a flex capacitor or a Millennium Falcon or anything like a thing that has personality that you understand, you have a connection with. Everything is kind of random. Everything's kind of shapeless. So as a result, I don't really care about cyberspace. It's roughly an interesting concept, but since it doesn't really have a strong structure to it, it's hard for me to really give a damn about it, and it just results in Sonic Frontiers just feeling shapeless and boring. But enough about the cyberspace stuff. Let's look at our characters themselves and see what's going on. Knuckles, our favorite hot-headed guardian of the Master Emerald. Dear viewers, can you tell me, what is the character arc he's going through in this game?
Oh, Roger, you idiot, it's obvious. You see, Knuckles always had to protect the Master Emerald in his life, but it feels unfulfilling now. Exploring these Turtle Islands, he's realizing he's jealous of Sonic's freedom. How Sonic can go anywhere he wants, while Knuckles is always alone, fulfilling his duties. The Coco reminding him that he's near extinct himself, he's motivated to loosen up, enjoy the world. While he still takes his guardian duty seriously, with a twinkle in his eyes, he notes that he won't be up on Angel Island for too long. He has a world to discover. Oh, Roger, you idiot, it's obvious. You see, Knuckles has the noble duty of protecting the Master Emerald, but he isn't taking it too seriously. He's going off exploring. This ends up in disaster as he gets trapped in cyberspace. Meeting up with the Cocos later, he's driven to help them out with their duties. Learn the importance of fulfilling your destiny, even at the cost of your own life. In the end, he promises he should go back to Angel Island. Oh, Roger, you idiot, it's obvious. You see, following from Sonic Adventure 1's story where Knuckles is mindlessly protecting Master Emerald without knowing the truth of what happened to his people, he can't help but go investigate when new information about his ancient tribe is found. Exploring the ruins and discovering the connections between ancient civilizations and his own history, Knuckles realizing that protecting the Master Emerald is only part of his duties. Finding the truth of his people is his job too.
So, what story is it? A, B, or C? Or D, all of the above? Or E, none of the above? A bit of A, a bit of C. There's bits and pieces to all of them. The prologue shows both Knuckles taking his job seriously and abandoning it, and in the end he both promises to go back to his job and not taking it seriously either. So yeah, all these storylines are right and wrong in every possible combination. So, hey, whatever plot you like, that's the right one.
But whatever your thoughts are, that's my opinion too.
Hence why most people prefer the third storyline, since it ties closer to the lore and history of the Sonic series and Knuckles' backstory. This story is mostly alluded to in the Japanese version of Frontiers, because yes, the Japanese version has slightly different versions of the character's story, creating even more fun chaos for us to entangle. That said, the American version still does contain elements of this story, particularly the scene of Knuckles investigating a rune, reminding him of his island. I absolutely love this scene, since the rune he's looking at looks completely generic and doesn't resemble any of the iconic runes ever seen on Angel Island. And when the game helpfully gives us a screenshot from Sonic 3 to illustrate what Knuckles is talking about, that screenshot doesn't even show runes but a rocky cliff in a jungle, which the runes also don't resemble. Amazing! Hey, here's an idea. What if the runes Knuckles found look like the Hydro City level tiles? Just a bit washed out and faded away, since it's in the desert, damaged by the forces of nature, to make it fit more with the new art style. Imagine that, the ancient aliens, being watery creatures, they build an underwater city to live on this planet, then the end makes it collapse when it attacks, forcing the aliens back to the surface, and then centuries later, the Echidna tribes found some of the runes, recovered it, and treated it as some kind of holy relic they want to respect. That'd be a neat way to tie the aliens and Angel Island lore together. But nope, we don't get fun things like that here. Instead, it's just generic runes. Trust me, they're totally like the Angel Island architecture. You can tell by... well, because Knuckles says so. I mean, to be fair, most of the runes that we see from the games are from the Echidna civilization that came after the aliens, so obviously they can't drop a few Echidna statues in there. Still, there's some cool tricks they could have done. For example, what if the aliens had some form of clairvoyance? That they're the ones responsible for making the tapestries in Sonic 3 Knuckles and Adventure predicting their final battles of their respective games. Heck, add a third tapestry predicting Frontier's own final battle. That'd be a neat way to tie it all together. I mean, if you want the alien lore to be connected to the Ancient Island lore so badly, I mean, maybe the Japanese manuals already explained it's the Echidnas who made the Muriel tapestry thingies or whatever, I don't recall. But either way, bitching about the cheap and personality-lacking presentation of the games aside, let's explore this storyline of Knuckles being enticed by the alien connection to his own civilization now, shall we? It makes sense that the writers would put this plot beat into Frontiers. I mean, after all, we get aliens resembling the very creature that destroyed Knuckles' tribe, and them being responsible for the origin of the Chaos Emeralds. Lore directly connected to the Master Emerald, the most important object in Knuckles' life. Our favorite Echidna is learning some very incredible, valuable new information here about his own origin. This should thrill him as a passionate archaeologist. I mean, that's Knuckles, right? The treasure hunter, the guy who knows all about ancient ruins and ancient languages and all that. This is Knuckles at his peak. So let's take a look at the scene where Knuckles learns about all this new information, and Knuckles' epic reaction to this all. There is no scene where he learns this or reacts to it. With exception of one scene of him looking at the generic runes, and the prologue I guess, Knuckles is a complete potato during the entire game, showing only the most minimal interest in what's going on. There's a reason why people gravitate towards this plot. It's amazing. Finally, after Knuckles has been a dumbass for decades, we put him right back at the heart of his storyline again. Knuckles the archaeologist, Knuckles the treasure hunter, finding himself a brand new civilization to explore, directly tied to his own tribe's history no less. This should be Knuckles at top of his game! We finally get Knuckles doing what he does best. Imagine, Eggman and Tails, usually the scientists and smarty pants of the group, are discussing what this alien civilization is all about. Knuckles can fire back, telling them that they're wrong, that he has tons of fairy tales and legends from his tribe's history to give new context to what they find. Imagine Knuckles and Eggman having an angry debate on what this piece of equipment does. Eggman reasoning from the cold, soulless mechanical explanations he found in cyberspace, while Knuckles has an entirely fresh perspective based on his people's own discoveries. We'd have Knuckles in the position of a scientist, and completely in character as well. Whoa! So of course this never happens. Now, okay, to be fair to Frontiers, there are a few scenes where Knuckles asks a question about the ancient civilization, and Eggman responds to him. Well, mostly in the DLC though, but still.
There are so many huge ruins on this island, and the 4 rotating rings on Ares Island are ridiculously big.
What a riveting observation.
All the big ruins are like big. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Archaeologist treasure hunting Knuckles investigating the history of his own tribes right there. Even followed up by Eggman mocking Knuckles over it for bonus points. So yeah, technically, the game does show Knuckles investigating this ancient civilization, but in the most low-energy, dull way possible.
The 4 rings represent the 4 islands, and when they're rotating, they indicate the link with cyberspace is in effect. When a ring stops, it means there's some sort of abnormality in cyberspace. I'm certain there's a meaning behind their size as well.
Again, whenever I make a point that something's not explained and doesn't happen, that I don't mean as in I want Ian Flint to write down a 5,000-hour lecture that Mike Pollock can barf out to us in the most boring, flat way. I mean, information presented in an adventurous, exciting way, with confrontation and emotion and excitement, you know? Not just characters just barfing out technobabble for 5 hours. But hey, it's expensive to animate, so of course, I guess I can't blame Ian Flynn for that. Also, I might give the writers way too much credit on them adding Knuckles investigating this stuff, since all playable characters get an equal amount of scenes where they ask a dumb question to Eggman or Sage. So it feels less like the writers are deliberately remembering Knuckles should be interested in this stuff, and more like they just had another 3 hours of cutscenes to fill, so just wanted to add a bunch of scenes where Eggman gets to fill us in on alien lore. And the fact that some of these scenes happen to contain Knuckles asking the questions was just a happy little accident. Now again, let me repeat. This video is not about pointing out plot holes or requiring explanations. I'm sure there's a logical reason for this. I don't care. The point is, it's boring. You are teasing us with the idea that we get Knuckles exploring the history of his tribe, practically handing out an IOU in the Japanese version, telling us, trust us, the next game Knuckles will totally look into the matter and be super awesome and lore-filled and blah blah blah, except then you already given the most shocking information in this game and Knuckles reacts to it like a potato. Why would I take your promise that next game will be better seriously if you can't be bothered to do it in this game? But hey, still, I mean, Frontiers did improve Knuckles. He's no longer the brain-dead idiot who shows no interest in anything but mindlessly punching things like it was in Sonic Boom, eh?
Smash it with my fists, or I'll use my fists on you. I'll take care of it with my fists. Punch that thing myself. I've been making good progress, breaking all sorts of stuff. No one can beat me when it comes to power.
So let's move on to Amy Rose. Ah, Amy Rose. If there's one character who desperately needs some character derailment, just desperately needs character period, it's Amy. See, Tails and Knuckles have one advantage over Amy. No matter how terrible they've been written and how broken they get, at least they have a home. A fundamental foundation point you can bring them back to. We know what they're supposed to be. Hot-headed, proud guardian, cute, capable, smart sidekick with some self-confidence issues. Just get the character somewhere back in that ballpark and we'll ignore the times you broke them. But Amy, poor girl, doesn't have a personality home anymore. Her original personality is persona non grata, obliterated out of existence. Clingy, oblivious girlfriend, excuse me. This is the year 2020 and beyond. We ain't doing that anymore, no sir. Our female characters are flawless, strong, independent bastions of strength and intelligence. Thank you very much. Now, Amy's original personality was always a bit off. I mean, I love the idea of it, her being a reversal of the Princess Peach type. No girly doofus who needs rescuing by her hero. This one is capable of protecting herself, but wants to be rescued by her hero because she's so helplessly in love with him. Aww. But she acts too clingy, resulting in Sonic being disgusted by her, especially since Sonic represents freedom, so obviously the idea of settling down is his personal nightmare. So there's a lot of fun you can have with this characterization, but it never really quite worked. She's either too annoying, or still played straight as Damsel, or Sonic's treatment of her is a little too mean-spirited. It's always a bit off. And in true Sonic Team fashion, whenever there's a problem that needs a little fine-tuning, just set it on fire and don't bother. So now Amy's just an empty shell. She's kinda strong, kinda smart, kinda responsible, kinda everything and kinda nothing. But no worries! If there's ever a game where we can fix her up, it's this one. After all, this is the game where everyone is self-reflective, where character flaws are openly discussed, and where characters express their desires for the future. So if there's ever a perfect opportunity to properly close off her original lovesick personality, put the lid on it, and introduce a proper new direction for this character, this is it. So let's take a look what Frontiers is doing, shall we? At first, it seems there's a very interesting thing going on with old Ames in this one. First of all, note that out of all the 5 characters trapped in cyberspace, she has the least amount of agency in it. Everyone else can move around, or at the very least get some kind of sensation out of it. She's the only one describing it as absolute emptiness, other than a parade of colors and shapes. So if cyberspace is connected to the strength of your character, that implies something is very wrong. So right after being rescued, she's immediately concerned about Sonic, and quickly moves on to rescuing Coco's, and putting stress on Sonic for rescuing Tails as soon as well. She's all over the place, so Sonic tells her off. Concerned she's biting off more than she can chew and lacks focus. You can't help anyone if you can't help yourself first. So boom! Here we have a nice piece of characterization, a character flaw, something to work with. After all, outside of her crush on Sonic, Amy's primary characteristic so far is that she's the social one, wanting to be friends with everyone and help everyone all the time, and now it's driven to its logical extreme. She's so occupied in trying to save everyone all at the same time that she lacks focus and loses herself in the process. Nice! That's a great direction to take her in. I love it. So obviously in the very next cutscene, Amy learns that she wants to spread love around the world and Sonic encourages her, and we stick to that plot beat for the rest of the game. So right after setting up our character as being too occupied in saving strangers and going all over the place, the game immediately 180s into no, she needs to save more strangers and be even more selfless. So we're going into the complete opposite direction with our character now, huh? Great. We never go back to the original storyline anymore. And when the ending rolls around and Amy sums up all that she learned, the big moral of her big lesson, it's that she's going to hang out with her best friend, Scream and Styx, which has even less to do with her storyline, but there you go. But hey, world building! Instead of Ian Flynn just randomly dropping in pointless references and character names, we get a little world building. And now we know that Cream and Styx are Amy's best friends. Ah. In fact, they're such best friends that when Amy had a picnic in the previous game and a birthday party in the next, neither Cream nor Styx are invited or mentioned, and Styx never shows up in the IDW comics as Amy's friends either. So yeah, totally world building and not Ian Flynn just throwing meaningless references at us. No siree. But it's not over yet, as a year later, the DLC was released. Here we seem to get a return to the original plot. In this DLC alternative final chapter, Sage forms a new plan on how to take on the End, and sends our heroes on new missions. However, Amy takes initiative on her own. Still feeling she needs to rescue the Coco, she decides to delay her quest to find the Chaos Emeralds and starts collecting Cocos instead. Several characters call her out on this, and even Amy herself barely seems to know why she's doing this. It just feels right. Uh-oh, here's Amy being unfocused again. What happens next? Will Amy's obsession to save everyone ruin Sage's plan to collect the Chaos Emeralds in time? Or will Amy's sidetracking quest gain our heroes a new fighting chance as the Cocos end up being very important? And the answer is yes! And no. And maybe. And I don't know. The game doesn't allow you to continue unless you got all the Cocos, so that means they were important, I guess, maybe? Or the game is just being annoying. So actually, Amy and Sage have a conversation about this, where Amy confesses she has no idea why she's collecting the Coco, and Sage gives her a pep talk that the Coco might actually serve them well. Wait, sorry, shouldn't that be the other way around? Isn't Amy endangering the plan by going off script, so shouldn't she be defending her decision towards Sage? Now it's Sage who's agreeing with Amy's instincts more than Amy herself, so basically removing Amy's own agency from her own plot, so what is the story here? Amy's story is completely told backwards. Instead of either having Amy be right and win one over Sage, or in her being wrong and learning a valuable lesson, instead, nothing. Sage herself likes the idea, and so there's no conflict. There's no real conclusion to the story here. It's just random things happening. So there's no real setup, payoff, or conflict, or anything story-related. It's just random stuff happening. I mean, it's not necessarily bad or a plot or anything, but it's just really shapeless, and again causes Sonic Frontiers to feel like it's about absolutely nothing. I'm not even sure if this plot is even a result of the plot you set up, or whatever. Moral of the story, just share your love with the world, which means just randomly doing what you think your tarot card says, I guess. Speaking of her moral, sharing your love with the world! Here's another example of how messy and unfocused this is. So in case you haven't noticed, Sonic Frontiers has this weird theme where the alien civilization is split into 4 sections, each representing our 4 main characters. There's one warrior-minded alien with a land of Cocos functioning as soldiers, right where Knuckles happens to be. There's a scientific-minded alien with a land of Cocos functioning as scientists, right where Tails happens to be. There's a heroic alien who gave his life for the cause, with a land... Oh wait, without a land, and without Cocos. I guess their function was to also die. Representing Sonic, who will also die for the cause, kinda, twice even in the DLC. And then there's a love-obsessed alien, with a land of Cocos functioning as morons who run into an explosion for their true love or something. Well, technically they're supposed to be farmers, but that's barely brought up. And they're in Amy's Island. What a coinky-dink. These Cocos are constantly seen chasing their true love, or comforting their babies. So with all the setup of true love and motherhood, you'd think that them representing Amy's mindset, they're setting up a romantic plot for Amy. Her being in love with Sonic and her desire to become a mother one day, perhaps. Except no, quite the opposite. Amy's original position as Sonic's unofficial girlfriend has been entirely eliminated from her characterization. So what was that all about? I mean, the closest the American version... Don't worry, I'll talk about the Japanese characterization shortly. The closest the American version comes around Amy's supposed relation with Sonic is having Sage refer to Amy as Sonic's admirer. I mean, every time Sage talks to Sonic or one of his friends for the first time, she briefly introduces them to themselves for some reason. What character they represent, what they mean, and apparently Amy's main characterization, according to Sage, is that she admires Sonic. Okay? I mean, that puts her on the same level as every random faceless background civilian. I mean, everyone in this universe admires Sonic, even including his arch nemesis Eggman.
That doesn't change the fact that he is a formidable adversary. I respect him.
Characterizing her as the admirer of Sonic is like characterizing her as the one who breathes air. But anyway, that's a tangent. Getting back to topic. So, Amy's character arc, at least if you completely ignore the She's Too Unfocused one set up earlier and go with the latter, she's learning to share her love with the world one, is that she's learning to be more altruistic, helping strangers in need. Like, that's something she needed to learn, but whatever. So, why the heck is the catalyst of this character arc witnessing aliens expressing their true love? It's kind of hilarious that despite Amy being the one learning to be focused on helping strangers in need, it's her Cocos that are the most self-centered, kind of? Okay, not the right word, they're not self-centered, but I mean, the soldiers and engineers are all sacrificing their lives for their duties, while Amy's Cocos are more occupied with their own families, their own true love or own kids, which is also noble and caring, don't get me wrong, but it's different, right? I mean, not devaluing the importance of taking care of your own family, but plot-wise, right? For the purpose of plot, if Amy has to learn about helping strangers over your own interests, and again, as opposed to pursuing your own family, shouldn't her Coco be helping in a soup kitchen or something to that effect to get the message across? Again, technically the function of the Coco in Amy's care is being farmers, but that's only mentioned twice, and we never see any of her Coco do any farming or feeding the other Cocos. They rather run into an explosion to be with their loved one, so it's all kind of messy. I mean, it's all love-themed, I suppose, generally, but it's all different forms of love thrown into a pile. That's like me saying, I love eating chocolate, and therefore I'm a representative of love. But whatever. So, just like with Knuckles, Amy's giving two storylines that contradict each other. Wonderful. And then there's the Japanese version giving her yet another storyline instead. So while the American version is eliminating Amy's relationship with Sonic as much as possible, the Japanese version embraces it instead. Well, without ever really explicitly saying it. So if you hate Son Amy, you can still interpret her story differently if you wish. They keep the door open. Anyway, here, Amy's acting weird, aggressively pursuing her Coco side plot beyond what's necessary, dropping cryptic hints that it's more than just saving the Coco. It's so she can think about our future. Sonic tells her she's a crazy bitch for acting up, and Amy warmly smiles at this. Ah, romantic. One major complaint about the Japanese version is that the dialogue was clearly not written with the animation in mind, so often the facial expressions are hilariously out of place with what the characters are saying, and that's wonderful. To the Japanese version's credits, they do make Amy's revelation from her vision more logical to the story. She saw aliens express true love and run into an explosion, and as a result she says that it reminds her of herself and realizes that mindlessly running towards the person you love isn't enough. You also need to think of the now, that she needs to refine herself first. So hooray! Not only is the Japanese version relevant to the actual plotline of the Coco, they also give an actual in-universe explanation why Amy's obsessive behavior towards Sonic is going to be downgraded in the future, in-universe. So it's character development rather than just retconning it out of existence like the American writers did. Hence why most people prefer this version of the story, awkward animation be damned. And yeah, I like it. Heck, I said it in the introduction. This is the game where the writers can officially create closure on Amy's old original personality and introduce a new one. I mean, they didn't introduce a new one, but at least they allude to her searching for one, so that's a start. There's some minor squabbles I have with this one though. One, Sonic's entire lack of reaction to the whole thing. It's kind of hard to care about Amy and Sonic's relation if Sonic just stands around like a potato having zero reaction toward Amy's entire quest toward figuring out their relationship, neither encouraging nor discouraging it, mostly just mocking her. Kind of hard to be invested in their romance when Sonic just smiles vacantly in the background. It's in character for Sonic, don't get me wrong, but it goes to show that Amy and Sonic's relationship is designed to be primarily comedic in tone. It's funny seeing Amy spend all this energy on their relationship while Sonic is just waiting for her to shut up, or daydreaming about Boy Toy Shadow, or whatever the heck is going on in his brain. Writing this as a serious love story is really awkward unless you make Sonic drop his guard a little, or make it an outright tragedy or something. One interesting consideration about Amy's character growth here is that her quest to become more mature in her relationship with Sonic is doomed if Sonic himself never becomes mature. After all, he's the free like the winds, no responsibilities guy. So Amy becoming more mature, more housewifey I suppose, will not help in their relationship as it stands right now. Because if anything, that seems exactly the type of relationship Sonic is the most scared of. He doesn't want to settle down, he wants to run. So Amy's quest to become more mature in order to win over Sonic is tragically doomed from the start and will only push him further away. So hey, that's interesting for us fans to think about. I doubt the official writers ever will. If anything, that's the main reason why I am disappointed why we're never shown Sonic's thought on the matter in this game. here's Amy talking about their future and realizing herself more as a person, and he's just...
Yeah, it sounds hard. Is it lunchtime yet?
Although I suppose that in and on itself is confirmation that he's still in Peter Pan mode.
Girls are icky. Back to adventure.
And of course, we'll never have Sonic maturing up, because his devil-may-care, free-like-the-wind attitude is what makes him Sonic. Maturing him up from that is essentially killing the character as we know it, so that ain't happening. Making this whole plot either a joke or a tragedy. Yet it never presents itself as either and pretends it works fine as it is, which makes it feel off to me. It's like a joke without a punchline, or a drama where nothing sad quite happens yet. It's not necessarily bad, but it's kind of missing something. But yeah, the Japanese version is kind of good, so hooray, thumbs up. Too bad it ain't what we got for the American version, which makes it unclear how much of this is canon and will be followed up on in following games. And to the American writer's credit, I guess they are trying to give Amy a new personality type, as they seem to be building her up as some sort of detective lately. Especially demonstrated in Sonic's Murder minigame, where she themed her whole birthday party around murder mysteries. But even here in Frontiers, in the DLC anyway, we see her play detective. When she does something Sonic never did for some darn reason, actually talks to the freaking Coco and asks him for answers. Hooray! I love it. Now, check out her amazing detective skills.
Do you know what happened to the Chaos Emeralds? Thanks for the insight. We won't let you down.
Amy, follow-up questions. He confirmed he did something to the Chaos Emeralds and you'd never ask him about it. Detective Amy, everyone. Ms. Marple, she ain't. Now, let's move over to Tails. And the good news is, like Amy's Japanese version, I don't have too many issues with him either. In fact, he's probably the best written character, if only for the fact he's the only one that actually has a clear, consistent storyline, even including the Japanese version. So hooray, finally no contradicting plots, just one. Tails has self-confidence issues as the sidekick. Wonderful. Except I still have two problems with Tails' story. One is that Tails' story kinda goes nowhere. This is best demonstrated with the Japanese version, where in the end of the story, he sums up the conclusion of his story arc, that from now on he'll save the world with the help of his machines. Hooray! Isn't that what you've already been doing in every single game up to this point? To be fair, and unfair at the same time, every character has this issue. I mean, Knuckles learns that he should be continuing to protect the Master Emerald, and Amy learns she has to hang out with friends and help strangers. You know, characterization they already had in every single game. Even if they have been neglected to show up for a while, but that's more a presentation problem rather than an in-universe problem that needed resolution. Oh boy, I love character development when they triumphantly declare that they'll keep doing the same thing they've always been doing. In the end, Amy in a Japanese version is the only one with actual change, officially eliminating her original clingy attitude, even though her clingy attitude was already been eliminated for a long time and hasn't been seen since, what, Sonic Rush in 2005? Sonic and the Black Knight from 2010, maybe? Oh, 2009. But nice to have an in-universe confirmation now, I guess. And in fact, let's talk about in-universe for a bit, because that's kind of key with Tails here. So, Sonic Frontier seems to be fixing issues that we fans had with the characters. Problem is, I think the problems are often caused by presentation rather than any kind of in-universe cause. Knuckles and his Master Emerald, for example, it's not like Knuckles ever explicitly in-universe states that he doesn't care for it anymore. I mean, the Sonic Adventure games established that he can carry the damn thing in his pockets. Well, wherever Sonic characters keep their items. So, in-universe, there's no real issue here. He still takes his duty seriously, presumably, just occasionally takes a break. Presumably with the Master Emerald carried in his something. Problem is more presentation-wise, as in, the game designers use him nilly-willy and throw him in any kind of game scenario, whether it makes sense for him or not, and whether they even have something to do for him or not. Because he's designated main character man, as I like to say. Knuckles being considered one of the trio main characters, so he has to be in all games, except that unlike Tails and Amy, his character is story and context driven, so the writers need to put a little effort into justifying his presence, which they then never do, and we're just left to assume what's going on. And if that happens once in a while in a silly spin-off game, whatever. No big deal. But when it's been more than a decade since Knuckles' original purpose has been even glimpsed at, and his personality is gradually turning down into something entirely new and dumber, eventually fans start wondering what's up. All Frontiers really needed to do is to reconfirm that yes, the old Knuckles is still here, and we're done. An in-universe explanation is not really needed. And if you're gonna give an in-universe explanation, I expect a full exploration of what's going on. Okay, you want to discuss it? Fine, let's discuss it. How serious does Knuckles still take his job? What exactly is happening when he's buggering off to another racing or Olympic competition? Why is he getting increasingly more reckless and kinda dumb? I'm sure a good writer can come up with something interesting here, but that will require the writers to take a stand, to make a point, to slam their fist on the table and say things about Knuckles. He is tired of his duties. He is more reckless. He is longing for something different. But as you must have realized by now, Frontiers isn't really interested in making any strong statements on the character, so everything is all nilly-willy and vague. The guy, he's kind of unhappy, but he's also still happy, and he still finds it important, but also doesn't find it important. He's kind of bends it, but also kind of doesn't. Yeah, no, a little, a lot, I don't know. Like, whatever you think, what's the case, that's totally what we intended. Choose your own preferred interpretation, I guess. So yeah, Tails, he's the one with the clearest problems. With Knuckles and Amy, it's vague, a result of Sonic Team not really knowing what to do with these characters, where fans feel like something is wrong, but we can't put our fingers on exactly what. Tails, on the other hand, he has big, in-universe scenes that people like to point at. Especially the Sonic Forces scene where he's cowering when Chaos Zero is attacking him, making Tails look utterly spineless, as if he hadn't fought off way worse opponents up to that point. And then in the second place, there's the Lost World scene where he suddenly becomes angry and jealous towards Sonic for over him perceiving Sonic trusting Eggman more than Tails, despite in a very previous scene showing both of them being equally exasperated and sarcastic on the prospect of having to work with the Doctor. But yeah, so in Frontiers, these scenes, or well at least the Sonic Forces scene, that's the only one directly called out, they're being brought up. Tails is frustrated. He's lost value as a hero lately. He's just cowering on the sidelines instead of kicking ass. And when Sonic points out he did have a few heroic moments, we get the infamous, "Then I've been inconsistent" statement, which practically feels like the writers breaking the fourth wall and outright slapping the previous stories across the face, which is kinda satisfying, but also weird. So, why does it feel like a fourth wall breaking meta statement rather than a proper piece of characterization, you may ask? Well, like I alluded to before, in-universe problems versus presentation. Look, as satisfying as it is to see the most hated Tails scenes getting called out, I have an issue with this as it approaches these scenes from a meta perspective. Fans hate it because they're inconsistent writing for Tails. At least that's what they think. However, technically I disagree with that statement, because I think fans are identifying the problem incorrectly. I mean, Tails being jealous at Sonic or Tails being terrified, these scenes in and on themselves aren't a problem. They could be perfectly fine, powerful scenes in a good story. The problem is, these scenes lack a proper setup and payoff. Take Sonic Forces scene for example. At this point in time, Tails failed to rescue Sonic, resulting in a 6-month war with tons of destruction and death, and presumably all citizens of the world being in a constant state of paranoia as they're haunted by terrifying visions and illusions created by the Phantom Ruby. Must have been breaking down their mental states. Tails being exhausted, broken by guilt, and utterly confused and paranoid by not being able to trust his own senses. It's a perfect setup to him being completely broken. That is, if that was really set up. Sonic Forces really lacks any punch in its setting up its world. All these things I mentioned are vaguely alluded to, but they're never really fully demonstrated. Nothing in the dialogue really indicates that Tails is legitimately tired and broken. I mean, you'd think that he'd immediately assume Classic Sonic is yet another one of Infinite's illusions to screw with his mind. But no, he immediately becomes best friends with Sonic, like right out of the gate. That's not a Tails who's completely paranoid and broken. That's just the happy, fun Tails. And even that could work if it's indicated that Tails is just utterly desperate, tired to the point of suicidal, that he just happily takes on any form of vague hope out of sheer exhaustion or something. But no, if that's the case, we have to assume it ourselves. Look, I'm willing to bet this scene could have been extremely popular and a powerful moment in Forces if Tails was given proper character arc in Forces. Imagine we start a game with Tails in his Sonic Lost World characterization, full of himself, filled with pride and jealousy, and then things go horribly wrong. Sonic is taken out by Infinite. Tails tries to rescue him, but his hubris makes him weak and unprepared, and he's knocked aside. Then, 6 months later, we see the toll of his hubris. Spirit is broken, he's utterly exhausted from the endless war, he's blaming himself for failing Sonic, and feels partly responsible for Eggman's rise to power. And then, after meeting Classic Sonic, he regains his confidence slowly until, in the climax, he has a big hero moment, where he does manage to save Sonic from an identical scenario with Infinite, bringing the whole thing to a full circle. Pride, humiliation, lesson learned, humble hero is born. Whammo, we got ourselves a nice punchy little character arc. and I'm sure that's what the writers think what they did. Or the writers suddenly realize, alright, it's supposed to be a kiddie game, and then they self-sabotage their entire story into a formless goop, because it was too dark for a Sonic game. While of course still keeping the imagery of a shell-shocked broken Tails traumatized into a wreck for the kiddies to enjoy. You know, just take away all the context and it's all kid-friendly. Look kids! Tails is traumatized, but in a fun, happy way. Hooray! Regardless, the fact we never see Tails really do anything at the start, nor at the end of the tale, we miss 2 of the 3 central points of his supposed character arc. We see him do nothing, then be a coward, and then continue to be nothing. So, leaving us with the final impression that he's just a wimp from start to finish. Now, finally moving back to Frontiers. Frontiers is all about character introspection and constantly bringing up the past. If there's one story where this mess can be fixed, it's here. Now, with Tails and Sonic having a quiet chat about Tails' insecurities, an opportunity presents itself, where the writer can give additional context to Tails' behavior in the last few games, and properly create closure to them in-universe. Have Tails acknowledge that he's been a dick in Lost World, and perhaps give us additional context why it happened. Have Tails, or Sonic, more directly allude to the character arc he should be having in Forces. Something. But Frontiers never really does this, because it's so utterly terrified in making any kind of solid statement on the characters. Look, it managed to acknowledge that Tails wants to be a heroic sidekick, but is frustrated he has moments of weakness in the past, alright? That's the most clear and hard statement Frontiers is ever gonna make about any character. Hoping for anything deeper than that is futile. So instead, the specifics are waved off with a meta statement. Tails has been written inconsistently. But not to worry, dear people, the amazing Sonic Frontiers writing staff is on the job now, doing a way better job. Which, in all honesty, they are an improvement, at least in terms of characterization, than the previous writers, but it's still leaving a lot to be desired. That's because you could argue that fixing Tails' story arc of the previous game would be detrimental to his story in Frontiers itself, except that his entire story in Frontiers is him dealing with this past behavior. Frontiers itself never gives Tails anything new to do other than barf out technobabble, so what do we even miss out on? Frontiers is making endless and endless references to past Sonic games anyway, so might as well make itself useful and do something with it. And worse, the whole scene just kinda leaves a bitter taste in my mouth, because instead of addressing the actual problem of the infamous Tails sequences, the fact they fail because of a lack of setup and payoff, proper context in the story, they're instead dismissed as Tails being inconsistent, as if implying that Tails having any kind of emotion at all, him having some jealousy or terror is in and on itself a bad thing that should never be happening. No, Frontiers, I want Tails to be able to get jealous or terrified. I just want the writers to put in the work and properly establish why he gets to these points. And preferably give us closure to these scenes at the end where Tails' character journey is properly discussed and the right lessons are learned. It's that Lost World and Forces were lacking. You, my dear viewer, may have recognized I occasionally refer to a character as acting like a potato. It's because I'm noticing the characters often have an utter lack of reaction to events that should be deeply personal or emotional to them. Whether it's Knuckles learning information about the tribe he dedicated his life to, or especially something I'll be talking about shortly, Eggman's entire lack of reaction to gaining a daughter in this game, it sucks a lot of the life out of Frontiers. It's hard for me to care about the big, shocking revelations in this game because the characters have little to no reaction. So seeing Tails' big emotional scenes from the previous games being dismissed as inconsistent writing, rather than just scenes lacking proper foundation, is kinda concerning to me. As if Sonic Team is interpreting our issues with these scenes, and possibly the general consensus that Sonic games have been too silly and need to become more serious, as a cry that we want the series to be devoid of emotion and the main cast to face every and all story beats with stoic indifference. That is, I wish I could go on to the Eggman chapter I written, but I'm running out of time to edit this video, so as far as this stream is concerned, I'm kind of skipping a couple chapters. Maybe I'll finish the video I planned in the future and upload it on a separate Dissected channel or even the True Sonic Spirit channel or whatever, so I owe you on that one. For now, let's just move on to the conclusion. So the characters all seem to be a little wishy-washy, a little flavorless, a little formless. Why is that? I can't help but fear that it might be my fault. It might be us fans' fault. Because we fans, we can't agree on what the correct characterization of them are. Shadow should be edgy. No, he should be soft. No, he should be dead. So Sega's like, let's give them all the characterizations. Give us a big pile of half scenes that fans can choose and pick from, as if it's some sort of all-you-can-eat buffet. Emphasize the scenes confirming your preferred take on a character and ignores the ones that don't. When Sage called Amy Sonic's admirers, he's being totally coy and actually calling them a romantic couple. Trust me. When Knuckles says he'll return to the Master Emerald, at least for a while, that's totally him confirming that he won't take his duties anymore. When Eggman stared at the sunset, he was totally thinking of Sage and how he's gonna scrap her and turn her robot parts into a nice paperclip holder. Whatever interpretation you prefer, that's totally correct. Just don't expect the next game to follow up on it. Or rather, the next game will continue to keep everything vague and just be wishy-washy about everything. Another thought I had on the matter is that Sonic has an identity crisis. I mean, I've been thinking that for over a decade, but we're in a new phase of the identity crisis now. I mean, let's say that when we're telling a story, there's 3 levels of continuity and world building you can have. Let's say level 1 is like your story's a big epic saga, kind of like Star Wars or the Marvel movies. All stories are connected, there's big story arcs, all the plot beats are followed up on. You have to watch every single movie and TV show to get the full picture of this grand saga that's clearly building towards some sort of huge epic showdown. Then you have level 2, say something like The Simpsons. You have a series of well-defined, clear characters set in a specific world with specific jobs, purposes, and goals. The shopkeeper, the wife, the school principal, etc. But there's not really any continuity. It never really goes anywhere. It's an endless series of standalone tales with these characters. Just endless episodes that can be watched in any order you want because nobody's really ever growing older or wiser. And then you have level 3. You got something like Mickey Mouse or Looney Tunes. You got characters with one very clear, distinguishable personality, Angry Donald, Scheming Wile E. Coyote, but they aren't anchored to a specific context. They don't really live in a specific time and space. They don't have a specific job or function. You can just endlessly throw them in every possible scenario you want. Daffy Duck is a space hero from the future, sure. Goofy is a ghost haunting Scrooge in Victorian London, sure. Elmer Fudd is a Scandinavian opera character, why not? Mickey is a prince at a medieval kingdom, sure, go for it. Their aesthetic personality that can be dropped in any context you want for all eternity, as long as their personality is relatively intact, audiences will buy them in any context. So with Sonic at this point in time, what we're dealing with, I think, is that Sega treats the series like an incomprehensible mix between level 1 and level 3 of writing. On one end, it clearly wants it to be like a saga. Oh no, Shadow is evil now. What happened? Play the game and find out. Oh, the aliens were actually Chaos Zero. What's going on? How does this fit with the lore? Game on and find out. And yet at the same time, I get the feeling they want the cast to be level 3 style characters. Eternal personalities free from context. Sonic Forces is the war game, so put all the characters in a war position. Silver is a foot soldier, sure. Knuckles is a general, yes. Tails is the shell-shocked citizen, why not? It's almost written like the storybook games, where they all occupy a role in the story, rather than it feeling like a continuation of where the character should come from. All it feels that way because there's no rhythm, no flow, no transition from point A to point B. For a saga, you need to chain those events together. People want to know why Luke Skywalker went from optimistic Jedi hero to grumpy broken old man. People want to know how the Scarlet Witch went from terrorist to Avenger to Mad Witch. We want to see the transition from point A to point B. Yet with Sonic characters, we rarely see this transition at all. Every game almost feels like a soft reboot, where all the characters are just reassigned to a new position that the writers want them to be, without any kind of consideration of where they went before or where they go next. Dude, just Elmer Fudd. Oh, he's a basketball player now. Isn't it fun? And the Frontiers tried to fix this, but ends up realizing it has nothing to work with. Knuckles has the Master Emerald and what? He likes it? He doesn't like it? He's researching something? I don't know. Drat. Forget it. Just make him an army general again. That was fun. Whee! So it doesn't really work as a saga. However, neither does it work as a cartoon because everything is too cluttered, too vague, too undefined. If I propose a cartoon with Yosemite Sam taking the part of Robin Hood, you'll probably laugh because you can imagine what kind of crazy antics will follow. If I propose a cartoon with Amy Rose being Robin Hood, you'll probably shrug because, well, she doesn't really add any kind of energy or personality to the premise. Okay, so Amy will probably be a relatively competent Robin Hood. Good for her, but where's the jokes? Where's the drama? Where's the story? So it doesn't work as a saga. It doesn't really work as a cartoon. What does it work as? I don't know. An interesting thesis in writing, I guess. So there you go. Whatever the problem might be, as usual, I end up with a feeling of guilt. That it's fans like me that are partly responsible for this whole mess. That everything Sega's doing is an incompetent and nightmare's attempt to appease my earlier concerns that Eggman was a joke and the characters are too basic. Alright, so no, everyone is a potato. There you go, problem solved. Yeah, great, thanks Sega. So yeah, at this point in time, I don't really want anything from the series again. Adventure, classic, 3D, 2D, serious, comedic, rich, or simple. What's the point? If anything, I just want Sega to stand for something. They slam their fists on the table and declare what they're all about. So at least I know if I like or hate what's happening. Because right now, I don't even know anymore. The series' future is like Frontiers landscapes, shapeless and dull. with chunks of green ozone floating in limbo. And that should include my video for today. Hooray! Waiting for Elise and Melting Man to pop back in. They have a bit of a delay.
Okay, the video finished for me.
Alrighty, welcome back. Well, I think the people listened to my voice for long enough. It's time for you to take over.
Okay, well first let me get up my notes. Alright, there we go.
So yeah, Elise prepared her own thoughts on Sonic Frontiers. She wanted to talk about this, so considering I already made that video, I figured, might as well let her have a bit now. And I guess Melting Man and me will respond to her points. You ready?
Yeah, I'm just going to warn you, though, this is going to be a little scattershot. Because, again, I didn't pre-record this. I'm just reading points off of a script.
Fair enough.
And how I plan to do this is that I'll introduce a topic, and then we can talk about it. Then I'll move on to the next one.
Sure.
Okay, so here we go. And before I begin, I just want to say this. Like, I don't want to lambast Frontiers. There are enough YouTubers who have already done that. And I also feel the pain that people who love Frontiers and have to see it get torn to shreds feel. As someone who loves Next Gen, regardless of its flaws, I know how much that hurts. Like, I just want to look at Frontiers and see how it magnifies Sonic's identity crisis. Like, pretty much everything Roger said, I agree with. So I don't want to repeat what he said. But I do want to expound on some things, specifically the characters, as this game loves referencing their past. Okay, and starting with Amy, like, I'm going to be honest and say that this iteration of Amy feels completely unrecognizable from her previous incarnations. She's no longer energetic, passionate, and the bubbly fangirl she once was. Instead, she's just the token girl character in the Sonic games. A strong girl at that. This is a thing that has been happening in Western media as of late, which I believe is a form of overcorrection from the damsels in distress we got in the past, where they can't live without their love interests. Here's the thing, though, and I've noticed this mostly with female characters. Creators want to completely remove any kind of male love interest they might have, or if they do have one, tone it down considerably, because a man coming to save a woman, even so much as helping her, is somehow seen as threatening a woman's agency. Personally, I think this is ridiculous. It also implies that women are perceived as weak if anyone helps them. It also perpetuates the idea that women can only be strong if they adopt masculine traits and abandon all feminine ones. Amy is not as bad as characters like Captain Marvel or Batwoman. She's not arrogant or completely emotionless. But Ian Flynn really does seem to want to push her into the warrior role. I say Ian Flynn because he also does this with Amy in the IDW comics, at least from what I've read. Like, I admit I loosely keep up with the comics, so I may be mistaken, and Melting Man can correct me on that.
Yeah, it's a mixture of stuff. Like with IDW Sonic, she kind of started off as pretty much more as the kind of what you said when like she was introduced in IDW Sonic, and that's kind of what led to people leading into the whole like, oh, Amy's just a rip off of Sally Acorn because she's the leader and blah 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 blah. But like eventually, like I think after the was it Metal? Yeah, I think it was after the Metal Virus arc. She decided to retire from the leadership and give it to Jewel. And now she's kind of more like a mixture of like, yeah, she has serious, but she also can be like, fun, bubbly quality, like the whole the camp adventure with Belle and Jewel. That was a nice one. But yeah, like mostly in the comics, she's still doing okay. It's just Frontiers. She kind of comes off as very bland, unless you count the Japanese version.
Which is really a shame because she's already a parody of the damsel in distress. I mean, if you want to make a statement on it, Amy's the perfect character. She already can deliberately get herself captured in order to get Sonic to like her, or I don't know, you can make a gag out of it, or there's so many twists and turns you can do it. Just eliminating that aspect of her just makes her boring.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to go into that. So
fair enough. Back to you.
Yeah. Yeah, getting back on track. According to the recent Twitter takeover, she's so strong that she can split the world. So her strength is based on how physically strong she is instead of how strong her spirit is like it was in the past. Physical strength is good, but there are different types of strength, such as inner strength, which I would argue is more important. After all, you can only get physical strength if you have the inner strength to discipline yourself to get it. Amy's greatest strength in the past was forming connections with people, even those who start out as enemies like Shadow and Gamma. She is capable of defending herself, but she is different from Sonic and the rest of the boys. She prefers to talk things out before immediately throwing hands. And her love for Sonic being implied at best and erased at worst again, it's like her love for Sonic somehow threatens her agency. When on the contrary, it could empower her. She wants to be like Sonic and take care of herself, but at the same time, she is happy knowing that Sonic will be there to save her should she need him. I do like what they did in the Japanese version, where the pitfalls of her love for Sonic are brought to her attention and she's forced to think about them. Just rushing after him into danger would create more problems and it would put a strain on their relationship. She's not Sonic. She has to find her own strength that he doesn't have to be of more use to him. And it's only in the American version where she's mostly given the quote-unquote girl boss treatment, albeit it's tame compared to other media, but it feels like an overcompensation.
You make one good point that really bothers me. Sorry about that.
No, go ahead.
But what makes characters who are very smart and strong interesting is because strength and smarts comes at a price, right? Like if you spend a lot of time training and becoming strong, you have less time to be social, less time to be smart or to learn. So, like, a character like Sherlock Holmes, he's not just smart, he's also very antisocial and awkward because he spent all this time learning that he's losing other qualities. So, a character is interesting because they don't just have a strength, that strength comes at a cost. And that creates, like, a balance. And that's the problem with strong female characters, they are just injected with power and intelligence, but it never comes at a price. So they just are perfect all across the board, and it really makes them boring and unrealistic. So
yeah, and as a female myself, I find that insulting.
I can imagine. Yeah, I mean it's it's the journey to get the strength and intelligence that's part of the fun and the misery.
Which is why one of my favorite characters is Katara from Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Right. Because she's not just injected with all her power. We actually get to see how she learns.
She's a proficient waterbender, but she's also kind. And I would say her greatest strength is her spirit in caring for the members of her team. Which is why she's also a healer.
Sure, makes sense.
Yeah.
Of course, Avatar is very good in balancing characters, yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I know Avatar is very easy to point to when it comes to good characterization, but hey, there's a reason for that.
Absolutely, it's excellently written. I really should spend more time looking at it.
Yeah, and going back to what I was going to say about Amy, if I could say what the best iteration of Amy is in recent years, believe it or not, I would go with Next Gen. Hear me out. Yes, she stupidly mistakes Silver for Sonic, but afterwards she apologizes and shows some maturity. She's also eager to help Silver when she learns he's looking for someone, albeit she doesn't know the reason why, but that's besides the point. She's also ready to help Elise escape when they run into each other. She doesn't show up in Next Gen all that much, but I found that the moments she did, she was still cheerful, bubbly, oblivious at times, but also knew when to be mature. And I think that's the key right there. Amy in the meta era was getting a lot of criticism because she was immature. Her obsession with Sonic was taken to an extreme, and she was horrible to other characters like Vector and Knuckles. That's not to say that she wasn't immature in the past. The Sonic Riders games had her be quite bratty a lot of the time. But for the most part, she knew when to cut the drama and have a serious moment. Amy, as she is now, has been taken to the other extreme. She's just the token girl to follow Sonic around and have a vague romantic interest in. At the same time, she's immature because of the belief that being emotionless somehow makes one strong and independent. Yes, there are times when one needs to set aside emotions and feelings for the greater good, but it's quite another thing to be completely devoid of emotions. Heck, Omega's a robot with only one facial expression, yet in Next Gen, you could tell what he was feeling when Mephiles told him he would be the one to defeat Shadow just by his motions alone. If a robot can emote much more than a strong woman, then I think we got a bit of a problem. What I'm trying to say is, give Amy some emotions again.
Yeah, there you go. That's what I mean. Like, Omega is super strong, but as a result, he's very robotic and has this very comedic personality. Like, his strength comes at a price. Like, he's a robot, and it's shown. That's what makes him interesting. So, it shows the
yeah,
value.
But that scene... Yeah, but that scene when Mephiles tells him, it's like, this proves you were created to stop Shadow, and Omega just freezes and recoils.
Yeah,
and then, then it's like you can tell what's going on through his motherboard, essentially.
And they let it breathe. Like, I know that if Amy was in that position, she'd immediately have a rejoinder. She'd immediately have like a one-liner. It's like, no, I'm back in charge. Like, the fact they actually have Omega being knocked down for a moment, it's like, ooh, I don't have a response to that. That makes it more powerful. Oh, wow, even Omega is shut up by this.
Yeah, and then when Mephiles, says, what you did to Shadow, that was as if saying that was your own choice. And then Omega just lets out all these shots at him. It's almost as if that was Omega saying, shut up. Like that dramatic, shut up. I would never do that to one of my friends.
Anyway, someone in the chat asked our opinion about that Amy now has magic powers in Sonic Frontiers. I have to admit I was very confused that her tarot cards took over everything. I mean, I assume they did that so she had the same floating powers as Tails and Knuckles, but I'm not a big fan of making them so overpowered. I'm kind of worried what they're going to do in the next game, because they're going to have to nerf her if they're going to put her in a regular action game.
Yeah, and Melting, maybe you can answer this. How often does Amy use her tarot cards in the comic?
Never mind.
Okay,
just when we need him the most, he was gone.
Yeah, oh well. But yeah, I think it's just with Amy is that they went into the other extreme by getting rid of her emotions. Because as I said, there seems to be this trend in Western media that if women display emotions, that somehow leans into the damsel in distress, trope. So, or they become too clingy and needy. But when it's like, no, on the contrary, you can show how these characters can be mature with their emotions, and show that, yeah, there are times when our emotions get the best of us.
Indeed.
But it's like, it's what do you do with that?
Hello?
Afterwards.
Melty, you're back.
Hi.
We needed your help.
So I was trying to say something, but I kept getting in. So to go back with the whole deal of how many times does Amy use the tarot cards in the comics? Well, there was there was one time that she uses them in the camping episode. Well, the camping story. They were just having fun, like, oh yeah, see the future. And then she used them in the 30th anniversary, just more hobby stuff that kind of guides her into helping Sonic. But yeah, so far only 2 times. I feel like with the sudden attention to the tarot cards or fortune cards or whatever was because of the whole fact that it's Amy's 30th anniversary. Let's bring back this obscure bit of tidbit that she does as a hobby and just exploit it, where I feel like Frontiers does it kind of worse, where there's a little too much focus on the card abilities and less on the Pico Pico hammer that she has to fight back, and now it's just become more of a useless prop. Like, I noticed with one of her movesets, she has this card jump ability, and when I saw her launch herself in the air and do those spins, I'm like, wait, that's the hammer jump ability from Sonic Adventure, except it's now with cards then. Okay then. But yeah, I don't know. In some ways, I kind of interpreted that as is this another one of Sega's retcons? Modern Amy can only use fortune cards, and classic Amy can only use her hammer. But I don't think that's the case.
Who knows?
I just had another thought.
Yeah?
It might be product placement, because...
I do notice that the tarot cards in IDW looked exactly the same as in the game. That's kind of interesting. So there must have been a clear art design decision. So is it actually product placement? Is this an actual brand?
There's a reason I'm saying that is because there is actually Amy's tarot card deck is actually going to be official, and it is going to come out in July.
Oh, there we go.
I just put a link to it in the chat.
Well, that explains a lot.
Yeah. Because I just remembered, is this product placement? Are they advertising Amy's tarot cards because a deck is going to be coming out soon? Like an actual physical deck?
Yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't know. But yeah, look, if they use this as her character, her being clairvoyant or being obsessed with all kinds of spiritual stuff, that could be fun. She's all collecting rocks and all that, because it's very trendy with girls to do now lately. I mean, my sister has an obsession with this lately. So if they use it as part of her character, it would be nice. But so far, it's just a prop. But I don't mind it. It's kind of cute. Yeah, Frontiers kind of overdid it. I agree.
Yeah. Poor Hammer. Like, especially since the Four Hammers is pretty much been neglected for I don't know, maybe 2010 or so. Like, even in the newest game, Sonic Dream Team's like, oh, Amy wheels out her hammer in one cutscene and then puts it away using the homing attack. No respect for the hammer, I tell you.
Yeah, makes you wonder why, if that's a deliberate decision. I didn't really notice. I mean, Amy hasn't really been relevant for so long, so I figured we don't see the hammer because Amy herself isn't really doing anything. I mean, it was relevant again in Superstar, so... But yeah, that's classic Sonic, as you said.
Yeah. So yeah, not sure if that's more of just Sega's retconning or if it's just the game designers just have no idea how to make Amy's hammer gameplay fun because it's been so long since we actually used it in terms of gameplay and having relevancy.
I guess it kind of makes sense because Amy did play very differently in Adventure and Advance, so maybe that's the problem they're trying to solve. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, she has been playable so rarely recently, that's kind of hard to tell. Anyway, I think we should go back to Elise's original script.
Okay. Yeah, because then I'm moving on to Knuckles. And this isn't so much Knuckles' character himself, it's just a problem that I noticed when, he was introduced. And it's an issue I've been seeing more and more these days. It feels like the games are giving their audience homework. Let me explain. Imagine you are playing Sonic Frontiers for the first time and you have not seen any additional material beforehand. All you knew is that the game was coming out, you saw maybe a trailer for it, and so you're waiting, and then the game comes out, you purchase a copy, and then you get on to start playing. At this point, you only know that Tails and Amy have been captured, you get to Ares Island, and you might be expecting to find Tails held captive as well, as Amy was held captive on Cronus Island, but no, you come across Knuckles instead. How did Knuckles get here? Well, maybe if you collect enough emblems, he'll tell us. You get the emblems, Knuckles is free, and he just says he was investigating some ruins. What ruins? Where? Why? How? He doesn't answer. We don't even get a flashback sequence. He just says he just tells Sonic he was investigating ruins and then tells Sonic to bring him up to speed. Confusing, right? Well, if you want the full story, you need to watch a promotional video that was from the official Sonic YouTube channel called Divergence. Sure, sounds all good, and the animation in this video is fantastic. Seriously, I want a TV show with this animation. But then you ask yourself, why couldn't they have just put this in the game itself? Couldn't Knuckles have told the story with a cutscene of events playing for the viewers? Why do we need to look at a separate piece of media to get what's going on? This is even more egregious in Forces. You have to look up several different comic issues to understand how the Resistance came to be or how Eggman got the Phantom Ruby in the first place. Why couldn't have all of this been done in-game? I can think of two possibilities, though both of them might be wrong, but here we go. Sega goofed up with the world building for Forces, they knew they goofed up, and they asked the comics to fix it. Or two, this was a way to promote the comics and get people interested in IDW. I bring up the second theory because I've been noticing more and more how IDW exclusive characters like Tangle and Whisper and now Surge apparently are being put in Sonic media that was traditionally for game characters only, such as Sonic Dash, and even being name dropped in Frontiers at one point. Ian Flynn said in it. Oh.
No, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, did you want to say? Yeah. Ian Flynn said in an interview that he dropped references just to see what he could get away with, and the fact that Sega put in the line about Tangle really makes me raise an eyebrow. And I have noticed there is a growing hostility towards non-game related Sonic media. I don't condone the way people present their frustrations, but I can see their point of view. It really does feel like a notice me senpai from IDW. They want customers, and they want to get the game fans to read their work. Understandable. But just randomly putting your characters into this universe that hasn't had them before isn't the best way to do it. But let's face it, comics are a niche thing to begin with, while games can reach a wider audience. Maybe not as much as moviegoers, but there is a sizable audience for games, especially for ones that have been around for a very long time, like Sonic. Comics definitely have their place, don't get me wrong, and it takes a lot of talent and skill to make a good comic. My point is that it comes off as either Sega being too lazy to implement the whole story into the game, or IDW trying too hard to get noticed, or both. Either way, it's forcing gamers to do homework when they really shouldn't need to, and I can imagine this is getting really annoying to them.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I can understand that because but recently I've been watching a couple of Five Nights at Freddy related videos where someone talks about like character analysis and histories, and occasionally they'll bring up like the novels that are like apparently brought like considered canon in some way. But a lot of the people that I've seen talk about those novels just only spread a lot of frustration because there's like a lot of details that contradict things here and there, and that's pretty much kind of the same deal with Sonic and IDW and the games when shoving in those references where like, oh, you know, they're canon, even though we can't be bothered to show them in the actual games, and instead it just kind of comes off as just like shameless marketing, like, oh, you know, buy the game, no, buy the comics to find out who Random Bob thing is, like, especially in like the recent Christmas themed Tales 2 video they did where they just blatantly name drop Jewel the Beetle and the Resistance. It's like, oh, who the hell are those? Oh, go buy the comics and read. But yeah, but in terms of like communications, like what you said with Forces and the comics, I feel, well, I mean, it's kind of well known that when it comes to doing adaptations in the comics, Sega's kind of notorious for providing little to no info. I mean, like heck, during the Archie Sonic days, when it came time to adapting Sonic Adventure, they didn't give them anything. So one of the artists had to go out of his way to import a Japanese copy of the game and painstakingly translate it just so that they can have any references. And like with Forces, like, yeah, we got prequel comics, but at the same time, they didn't really help much either because they're just kind of, you know, shooting the shit, you know, trying to make up as they go along. Like, oh, like Infinite's like a rebel leader or something, and yet that's not really established in the games. They just contradicts the whole, like, oh, no, he's just another one of Robotnik's creations. And yeah, and yeah, like what you said before, like having the cartoon be in the game. I've noticed that people have that same issue with Sonic Superstars. Like, yeah, the prequel cartoon was cool and all, and at the same time, why couldn't that be like the main opening cutscene to the game itself? You know, kind of maybe better establish the whole Black Dragon deal because yeah, at the end of it all, the whole thing just comes out like at pure random. It's just suddenly final boss. Yeah.
Okay, I got a couple. There's a lot of for me to respond to. First of all, am I the only one who isn't bothered by Tangle and Jewel being name dropped because the IDW comics were deliberately written as sequels to Sonic Forces, so they already feel like they've been integrated into the games, more so than any other Sonic spin-off before? I mean, it's more Styx that I'm bothered by because he literally has absolutely no context within the Sonic Prime universe. Well, Tangle is given like a official introduction through the IDW comics. But that's me. Anyway, I think the problem with all the side comics and cartoons is mostly just because another issue I have with the games is their lack in sets and props and side characters. It's like Sonic Team is really lazy in all the assets he create for each game. Like, cutscenes are really boring. It's just characters standing in a static location talking to each other. When I showed those cutscenes from Sonic Riders to Sonic Adventure 2 in my previous Dissected video just now, like you saw, I mean, with Shadow, you see the general and all the soldiers, and he stands in this command room. Like they put all this effort in creating all these assets to really give the story that extra punch. Like, here is what the humans do. Here's the military, and modern Sonic games don't really have that anymore. You don't never see any supporting characters. You don't see any sets. You don't see any props. It's just the main characters in the static location. So I guess that's why they're relying so much on those cartoons and comics, because they're too lazy to put those assets in the game. They have comic artists draw it. It's easier, I suppose. Maybe it's just because creating assets is more expensive now. I guess modern video games are just too expensive for their own good. But yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Everyone's speechless.
Yeah, it's just as I said. It almost feels like you're giving your customers homework. Where they have to go out of their way to either read or watch separate media when you have to ask yourself, why didn't you just put this in the game itself?
That's a good point.
And now the Sonic fan base knows just how rough and hard it was for us Kingdom Hearts fans. Had to buy multiple contents just to understand, like, oh, okay, Chain of Memories comes next. Oh, and then like DS. Oh yeah, 358 days.
Well, one thing about Kingdom Hearts, the more information I get of the story, the less I understand it. So you can better just stick with the couple main games.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, with Kingdom Hearts, they release like collections at a time. So even if you're a new player, you could still play all of these games at once. you know.
Yeah, at least they have like the HD collections that compile like most of or every other previous games, or kind of condenses some of them, like the story versions of the DS games, which is really makes me wish like Sonic had really something like that. I mean, like sure, there's the Genesis games that have been ported for like since the dawn of time, but like come on, like what about like the other stuff? You know, like maybe people want to know what the random bits, like, oh, the Station Square, okay, like Dreamcast, or, oh, this, dealing with the Jamero, like, oh, how about, like, the Advance games? Oh, no, they can't do that because THQ copyright issues or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
but
guess
yeah,
it's a
like,
mess. Go ahead.
yeah, but to Kingdom Hearts' credit, you know, it's like they do come out with games every so often, like 1.5 or all in one package, or the stories so far, where the games that have been released are all compiled onto one disc, as it were. So you can play all the games, or you can watch the story compilations, like with Roxas's story. So you can get up to speed on what is going on with these characters.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's true.
I really wish that Sonic had something like that. Like, wouldn't it be cool if we had a compilation of Sonic Adventure 1, Sonic Adventure 2?
Absolutely. I don't know.
So if we had something like that, so it's like, so you could like make something for new players.
Then again, Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 are still relatively easy to get. Sonic Shuffle, on the other hand. Or here comes Melting Man with Amy's American 1 again.
Amy's American Page 1. Yeah. But yeah, at least with the Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, at least they're still kind of like widely available, mostly from like the Steam versions, even though most people will say those are the worst versions compared to the Dreamcast and GameCube. And again, it feels like that's just more of graphical differences and not much gameplay, but I don't know, I haven't really delved that much into watching major differences between that.
And to defend Five Nights at Freddy's, even though that's like an hour of discussion ago, like that series actually built on people's joy of figuring things out. Also, I think the books are more an alternative universe, kind of like Sonic X is to Sonic. So you can kind of get information from it, but it's not canon. But yeah, I'm a bit off topic now, so let's go back to...
No, that's okay. But yeah, bottom line is that Knuckles' story kind of gave me it's like kind of showed me, it's like, it feels like the creators are giving their players homework.
Absolutely, yep.
But
hey, we nerds love homework. Well, yeah, go ahead with your script, sorry.
Yeah, anyway. As for Tails, Roger pretty much said everything I was thinking, but I would also like to say that his story was kind of the final straw for me. It made it clear to me that Sonic has a huge identity problem, and trying to make the story, as it is now cohesive and unified, is a losing battle because there is no consistency. After going through all these points, I've come to a horrible realization that Frontiers annoys me on so many levels. I say it's a horrible realization because I really want to like this game, and I don't like to be critical of other people's work, mostly because I'm a creative myself, and I know how hard it is to make a product. It takes a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to make something you can be proud of, and I don't want to take that away from anyone. That said, I can't just ignore these problems. Frontiers has all the ingredients there to be a great game, but it falls short in so many areas, especially the story. It retcons so much... It retcons pretty much everything with the Chaos Emeralds and leaves more questions than answers. The references it makes may not be offensive, but they feel like a cheap attempt to make everything cohesive but just end up muddling everything further. And its attempts to fix characters feels like shallow and lazy excuses. And I have to ask, is there something wrong with me? Do I just have too high expectations that can never be met? Or am I just asking too much from a series about a talking blue hedgehog? I racked my brain about... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was about to say, like, or in some case scenarios, maybe we're just getting too old and senile.
I guess we are demanding too much, but hey, it's fun breaking it apart, so as long as we have fun, then who cares, right?
Yeah, and I guess one reason why that happens so much with Sonic is, like, this is a franchise that has been going on non-stop for, like, over 30 years. Like, you know, like, despite people saying, like, oh, there was a quote-unquote Sonic drought because there are no games for a while. I mean, like, even then, there's always going to be something to keep it alive, you know, like the comics or the TV shows or the merch. It's something, like, much different than, say, Crash Bandicoot, who was, like, pretty much dead for over almost 10 years until they brought him back with the remasters. And there, I was definitely more nicer to it. Like, aside from the fact that I'm a big Crash fan, it was mostly because the Bandicoot just has been MIA for so long that I was just willing to take anything before they eventually felt more comfortable making a brand new game. So that's why I'm a little more harsher with Sonic in this case.
Also,
because,
Crash isn't pretending it's a big saga. Crash is just having fun. Like, Sonic is legitimately trying to come across as a saga, so therefore we can throw those accusations at him. Like, I don't think Crash ever pretended to be like this epic or something.
Yeah, that's true. Like, Crash has always just been like the fun, wacky series. Like, I know there were some attempts to try and take it a more serious direction, like Crash Bandicoot Evolution, which was scrapped in favor of Twinsanity, but that's a whole other different story to get into. But yeah, at least Crash is a series that actually has consistency for the most part, as opposed to this pesky blue hedgehog that's been going on for over 30 years.
Mm.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, I didn't really get what is exactly your issue with Tails, because.
Well, you pretty much said everything, you know. And my issue was, especially when he says that line, "Then I'm wildly inconsistent." It's just, it feels like the fourth wall just broke, you know. And I'm just like, it's like no.
Yeah, I feel that same way too.
It's like I'm wildly inconsistent, and I'm like, this whole series is inconsistent.
Yeah, I always felt like that particular line was just like Ian Flynn just gave up, or just trying to come up with some get out of jail free card excuse.
Yeah.
That's why I don't want to be too bothered about whatever each game continues in one big epic saga. Like, at this point, I just want the games in and on themselves to make sense by their own logic. Like, just, okay, fine, make every game a soft reboot. At least make sure that each game has something to say.
Yeah, or in my hot take, just go for a full-on hard reboot for Sonic. You know, just drop everything, start from scratch, and actually keep it consistent this time from the beginning. But that's just me.
Well, I'm going to get into that later.
Yeah, I always say Sonic Boom was kind of a remake, and that was just as chaotic and all over the place as Sonic Prime, so I don't have any hope for that. But yeah, we'll let Elise get there later.
Yeah, although to be fair to Boom, it also, especially the TV show, it did establish itself as just being a series of adventures and just watching these characters go through chaos. Like, they had established personalities, and then you were watching their personalities.
Yeah, like I said, if Sega wants to turn Sonic into Looney Tunes, then Sonic Boom is a pretty good way to do it. That was pretty much Sonic as a Looney Tunes character, yeah.
Yeah, dull Looney Tunes, but yeah.
Yeah, I have issues with Boom, but that's not it. But yeah, it'll go back to Elise. Sorry.
It's like, I racked my brain for the longest time to figure out what the problem is, which shows just how much I need to go outside and touch grass, or in this case, snow. It wasn't until I watched some mods on YouTube with characters like Shadow and Silver that I was finally able to realize a few things. It's like, one, all of the attacks that Sonic has in this game could easily be given to other characters, and it would make a whole lot more sense. Seriously, the Silver mod paired with Sonic's projectile attacks makes a ton more sense. Not only are they the same color as his psychokinesis, but they look like attacks that Silver could actually do. And yeah, I posted some pictures in the chat, so you can show them.
All right, if I see it.
Yeah, then it's like, it makes me feel like the game just took the powers and traits from other characters and shoved them all into Sonic for no reason other than he's the titular character. So when Tails, Knuckles, and Amy were playable, I didn't care because Sonic basically can do everything already, so what's the point? If they had levels tailored to just for them, that would be one thing, but they're stuck in the open world zone. This is a problem I've noticed for a long time with Sonic specifically. He no longer feels like a character in his own right. He just feels like a vessel that can do anything the plot asks of him, and the game gives it to him because the other characters are rendered useless or non-existent. And no, references to them do not count. It's like, the reason it's so hard to pin down his characterization at this point is because he kind of doesn't have one. He's a puppet with only hints of a personality. It's like, going back to Next Gen, I know I keep bringing this game up, but I seriously believe it did so much right, particularly with Project 06. It's like, as it showcases the terms of gameplay in the best. Each character has their own skills and movesets. It's like, and this makes them feel like their own entity, and that the players have to figure out how to get through situations using the character's individual skills. Same thing with Adventure 2, a game I have criticized for having mirrored gameplay between the Dark and Hero characters. It at least varied up the styles and aesthetics just enough to make each character feel unique and had levels tailored to specific characters. Heck, even Sonic Heroes, a game with less variation, still manages to make each team feel distinct and unique through either their dialogue, giving them unique team attacks, having certain teams be able to do special things such as Charmy being able to activate flowers to serve as teleporters, like Sonic and Shadow being able to ring dash, Espio being able to stick to walls and turn invisible, or Amy being able to hover in the air for a short time with her hammer. Sonic Frontiers falls into the trap of Sonic being the one to do everything, even though the series has other characters that can do the same thing and more. And when they do try to give characters something to do, it's only in a side story, which means it's technically not canon.
Oh, I'm not sure about that. But yeah, I think right now we're just in an in-between position. Like, after Sonic 06 Burn Sega, they've been eliminated other characters entirely. So yeah, Sonic has been the guy who does literally everything. And so I guess at this point we should just be grateful we even get playable characters again in pretty much everywhere. So man, thank goodness for Dream Team and Superstars and all that. So
yeah, I will say Dream
we're on their
Team
way
actually...
to get improvement. Yeah. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I will say that Dream Team actually does utilize various characters to a very good, especially for handheld. Like, it's very simple where you only have characters who can do one specific thing, kind of like in Heroes, but at least it makes the characters feel relevant.
As much as I hate the aesthetics of Dream Team, yeah, I'm really interested in the game. Every single time I see screenshot for a video, it really looks awesome to play. So, but I don't have an Apple. They're so expensive, darn it.
Yeah, funny enough, after the Christmas live stream, I just so happened to got lucky and got to experience Dream Team, mostly thanks to my brother-in-law's iPad. So I played for a bit. It's like, yeah, it's nice and fun, although the moving around kind of took me a while to get used to, and that's mostly because I completely forgot about Elise's her method of fixing that was going with the options, which I didn't know about. But yeah, I didn't beat the game. I only got as far as unlocking all the characters, so I was like, hey, that's good enough for me. At least it's nice, decent. Sucks that it's stuck on an exclusive thing that nobody has, so it feels like it's going to be the next Knuckles Chaotix in a way.
Well, so speaking of everyone in the team having their unique ability, sorry, Elise, your unique ability of being the only one to play this game has officially been revoked.
Well, hey, at least she actually got to beat the game. I never did.
But yeah.
So I guess I have the bragging rights for that. Ha!
Yeah.
There you go. So, back to your script again. Sorry for distracting you again.
Yeah. That's okay. I needed to catch my breath anyway. Yeah, because I notice when I go on these and I start to run out of breath.
Look, if you need a break, just say so. We'll take over. Just
okay.
Ask Melting Man something about the comics, and he'll talk for another 15 minutes.
Yeah, and, well, this brings me to my second issue. But I notice an increasing disinterest in story continuity. People argue back and forth about what is canon in the games. My issue is that the games, when actually looked at, have no canon. It's like, you can't have so much of a canon if there is no consistency. Games like Zelda can get away with having different stories and settings because it is explained that Link and Zelda are reincarnated over and over again when Hyrule needs them. That's why Hyrule can change and evolve over time, and why Link can have different skill sets. It's a different Link, and even when it's the same Link like in Majora's Mask, since he's the same one from Ocarina of Time, he's in another world that runs on different rules to Hyrule. Sonic has no such excuse. This is the same Sonic from the last game, and he exists in the same world he has always been in. Heck, even Kingdom Hearts, a game that feels like it's making things up as it goes, manages to have a semblance of continuity. An example being Xion not being mentioned in Kingdom Hearts 2 due to her being forgotten after she returned to Sora, and coming back in Kingdom Hearts 3 because there were records of her written down somewhere, even if her name and story was forgotten by everyone else, but her existence still existed somewhere, and Sora was able to call her back because of it. Sonic doesn't have this. It makes things up as it goes along, but with little to no regard from where it came from before, like even actively trying to ignore what came before. And when they do try to tie stories together, it just comes off as cheap because for the longest time, Sega didn't seem to care about continuity and even seemed to actively retcon things such as Team Dark not being friends, a statement which I say is objectively false. And now they want to make everything canon, from the games to the IDW comics to the TV show Sonic Prime. And all of these are completely different things. They have different teams and writers working on them, and making them all exist in the same universe just creates more disharmony and strain. Eventually, the rubber band is going to snap, and we won't be able to salvage anything.
I think
and don't get me started.
Sorry,
No,
I think
ahead.
the problem
Will
is
you catch my breath?
Kingdom Hearts has someone actually in charge. I don't know his name at the moment. It's Japanese. Tatsumi something.
Nomura.
Nomura, there you go. So he actually has like a brain, like a heart at the center of, like an actual person in charge. Well, Sonic doesn't really seem to have.
He has
one.
the heart at the heart of Kingdom Hearts.
Exactly. Yes.
Heartception.
But yeah, Sonic doesn't really have like a singular person in charge, so it feels more it's made by a committee who just keep changing their minds every 5 years.
Yeah, especially with the inconsistent writing staff. You know, like, oh, we have Japanese writers, and oh, now we have Pontac. Oh, now we have Japanese writers again. Oh, now we got Ian Flynn trying trying his damnness to deal with all the mandates and restrictions, whatever. But yeah.
To their defense, it does seem that they're trying to make it more coherent. That's probably why they hire Ian Flynn to write pretty much everything these days. So I guess that's their attempt to solve this problem. But we're still unhappy, Sonic fans that we are.
Yeah, I guess there's kind of like this big sudden shift, or at least a different style when it comes to comparing his writing in, say, like Archie Sonic and IDW and more recent games. I guess it's also because of presentation, because, like, you know, IDW, he has to work with what he has with, like, okay, can I do this thing or do that thing, and trying to work off of there, and kind of, in some ways, he does kind of try and make up stuff as they go along, like, there's the whole deal in the Encyclopedia where he tries to provide some vague implications that Marine has, like, water-bending abilities, even though it was never established. And, yeah, it's definitely a big difference when compared to...
I would say it sort of is with Marine, because if you watch the cutscenes for Sonic Rush Adventure, you know, she does hit that robot with this energy ball thing, and the way that it reacts, like, when it hits and splatters, it looks like water.
Yeah.
So
like,
I would say, yeah...
Yeah, so there's that, and then of course there's the whole deal of like, oh, like, you know, IDW Prime and games are considered in the same canon, even though there's too many things that contradict itself. And yeah, I think that's definitely why I kind of favored Archie Sonic more, because like, yeah, well, like one thing, it's more of its own thing, so it's not like, you know, oh, we're forcing it into the game's canon and confusion, blah. But like, there's more like a better establishment. Like, you know, things are more properly set up. Like when things are. Like, when past events are mentioned or followed up on, we actually see that. Like one example, like, oh, the anti-freedom fighters, they show up and invade Freedom HQ. It's like, oh, how did these characters show up? And we actually see some, like, quick flashbacks of, like, why, like, how they got into the zone and why they look so different from going from generic biker gang to being more of their own thing. And, and yeah, there's kind of like that. I'm not really seeing that with IDW Sonic. It kind of feels like... It kind of blew its load too early with the Metal Virus arc, with the, you know, intense purposes and ongoing story arcs, and then nowadays it's like, it's just mundane stuff. They're just doing stuff. Yeah, you know, I'm missing the push. You know.
Yeah, that's a bit of the weakness and the strength, right? I mean, on one hand, having separate series at least makes sure that they can do whatever they want. So the Sonic CTM or Archie had their own universe, so they could have legitimate epic stories. And now everything is supposed to fit as a whole, so now they constantly have to cooperate with each other, which is nearly impossible because Sega's one big giant mess.
Yeah, but I find it quite funny that, like, in terms with the whole, like, oh, Frontiers DLC, when they're just babbling on of, like, trying to explain stuff, and how a lot of it just boils down to, oh, the Ancients did that, oh, the Ancients did this, and it's kind of like, just like with Archie Sonic, like, oh, how did Earth become Mobians? Aliens! How did the people get de-roboticized? Aliens! now, granted, this was mostly before Flynn came on, so, like, when I was hearing him, or at least hearing his dialogue for that DLC stuff, I'm like, I feel like he's hasn't quite gotten over the whole Archie Sonic shtick just yet.
I always love it when ancient civilizations are better than the current one. I mean, that means that your main civilization is worthless.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do feel the Sonic games actually kind of need to have supporting media because they're so lazy themselves. I mean, would have been nice if the games themselves had like an RPG game that could really establish its foundation, but apparently they don't.
I think that may also be another reason for the hostility towards other media is because when you look at other media, granted, it does look like there is real effort put into it, whereas with the games, it feels like the gamers are just getting scraps.
Yeah,
Like they're getting the bare minimum effort of what Sega can give them.
In terms of world building, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, like being an Archie Sonic fan, I always kind of had that bit of jealousy with how they've always been like neglected or dunked on. It's like, oh no, they're not like the games. Like, oh, the game's the main thing. And I'm not sure if that's. I think it's probably because like people are just so hell bent on like whatever said, like, oh, like Prime, IDW, and game, they're considered canon, and they take that word as law without like really thinking of like the implications or what like how certain puzzle pieces don't quite fit. But yeah, it's definitely a tough time, especially with how long Sonic's going on, with all the different interpretations and shows and comics.
Yeah, my friend Aaron described it best, where it's like you're putting together a puzzle and the pieces keep changing.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's like eventually you're gonna lose interest, because then you're gonna ask yourself, why do I even bother?
And then you actually start preferring the size spin-offs. I mean, Sonic Underground is Sonic Underground. It has nothing weighing it down. It doesn't have to be dragged around anymore. Like, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Same with Sonic Archie. It is what it is. I mean,
or Sonic X. It is what it is.
Exactly. Yeah. So, well, the games are just this monstrous Frankenstein creature, just mumbling all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to your script.
Yeah, going back to my script, it's like Frontiers kind of magnified this issue with continuity or lack thereof. It makes the most references to past Sonic games than any other game in the series, and even references outside of the games. So much so that they're not meant to tie into the games together. They just come off as member berries. Now, to give some grace, Ian is used to writing for comic books, which from what I've seen uses references quite a bit, particularly American comics. So Ian has experience in one form of writing, but not so much in another. However, the way references are used in Frontiers doesn't translate very well to video game format. If he's just getting used to writing for video games, then I can cut him some slack. Still, I hate the references with all my guts. So, yeah, it's like... Because as I've dabbled in other forms of writing myself, like writing a novel is very different from writing a comic, and writing a comic is very different from writing like a TV script. There may be some overlap, but for the most part, it is very different. And video game script writing is very different. So what may work in one area doesn't necessarily work in another.
Good point, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I found this funny meme someone made of Sonic making references where it's like super obscure. Like, oh, this waterfall reminds me of the time I activated debug mode in Emerald Hill and cloned multiple waterfalls and turned it to my alter ego Ashura. Like, hey, Melting Man, you should make a reference like that. Like, have a Sonic Frontiers moment where Sonic just starts barfing out, like, endless references to obscure stuff.
Well, I think I kind of already did, but it was kind of more, like, cynical in a way. Like, the whole, like, oh, Frontiers, like, references this, references that. And then we get a scene where Sonic's just like, hey, Tails, remember that time Roger Craig Smith trolled the Sonic fanbase about leaving the franchise? Now, that was some funny shit. But yeah, that was a bit too like mean-spirited and cynical, which I'm trying to step away from that. But yeah, with me, how I love to throw in a lot of random obscure stuff just for jokes. But if I was given the reins to be write a more serious, focused story, then like all that kind of stuff would be just pushed more to the background. Just like, oh, just fun little Easter eggs. Like, oh, there's a graffiti drawing of Rabbit Sonic, or oh, there's a certain text on this building that like translates to Baby's American Page 1 or whatever. Yeah,
but yeah,
there's referencing, and then there's referencing in a bad way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I appreciated Ian Flint's trying to do world building. I guess that's what he's attempting to do. Like, okay, look, the game itself is completely empty, so we just throw in references just to give you the illusion there's actually like a bigger world going on. And yes, don't worry, Jet and the Babylon Rogues are actually canon. Look, Sonic mentions them. So I see what he's trying to do, but yeah. If anything, it just puts the finger on the wound. It just showcases how empty and barren the games actually are now.
Yeah, and then of course people will just brush it off and just stick to the whole like everything is canon and call it a night. And to me, it's more like, well, we have the Sonic storyline that's a train wreck, and we have the Band-Aid. What was it? The train wreck of the Sonic timeline, and Sega's idea is just to throw on the Band-Aid, aka everything is canon, and call it a night.
In the end,
yeah.
When everything is everything, then everything is nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to Liz.
Okay. After all this, I could say with absolute confidence that if Sonic the Hedgehog wants to have a saga that draws upon stories that came before, then the series needs a hard reboot. The lore is such a mess that we need to either bend over backwards just to make it work or scrap the whole series and start over from scratch. And I vote for the latter because of the headache the current lore is right now. When I say hard reboot, I'm not saying get rid of everything that makes Sonic Sonic. After all, I don't want to see things like Angel Island or Space Colony Arc go away. But I want to see a more concerted effort to make the series more cohesive in terms of lore. Heck, even fix issues that were present before, even in the games that people love. So yeah, that's my take is on a hard reboot. Is that I do think.
Yeah, that's pretty much my idea of a hard reboot. You know, like don't like reinvent the series. Like, oh, it's Sonic riding a dinosaur alien thing, traveling to like planets to fight off monkey butt fucks or whatever. It's like no, just keep still keep the premise of the series, just keep it more consistent and keeping things more tighter, more balanced. Like I know there's some people that are obsessed over the Super Chaos Emeralds, but after I actually got through Sonic 3 and Knuckles for the first time, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, how can you actually get the Super Emeralds to work? I mean, I kind of just assumed that they were just more like just the regular Chaos Emeralds, just upgraded with the power of the Master Emeralds, rather than just be its own separate thing, but I don't know.
One problem, I think, with reboots, usually a reboot needs to have a very visual style to it, so you can clearly have a distinction between the old and the new. I mean, I think of Mega Man, where every new timeline has like a completely different art style, or like, Marvel Extreme, I think Spider-Man Ultimate and all that had a different art style than the originals and all that. And Sonic Boom is a good example, but considering Sonic Prime has already gone over like 100,000 styles, it's going to be very difficult to come up with a new distinctive style for the reboot that sets it apart from the rest without it just feeling as yet another take on the series. So I fear that Sonic Prime is way too chaotic to even have a regular reboot, I guess.
Yeah, that Sonic Prime's like, yeah, I still like the show, but man, does it have issues with its story pacing even after the recently debuted first episode of the new batch of episodes.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't even talking about Sonic Prime. I just meant the main timeline. I was referring to the actual show. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's the issue. I can understand what you mean about style, but I think you could still find a way to work with that. I would just say keep a consistent style.
Yeah.
And an interesting one, because, man, Sonic is boring now. Man, I miss Sonic Battle and Sonic Riders with their wacky art styles. I mean, even Sonic Frontiers cover looks kind of cool. Like, make a game look like this. Like, the regular in-game
I kind
stuff
of like
looks
it, though,
boring.
when Sonic has a bit more, like, longer proportions.
Yeah, exactly. And more crazy face expressions.
Like, this is why I like Sonic Next Gen's designs, because they look very sleek. And, the game itself was designed around these longer proportions.
I think it's also because of how they animated the cutscenes, because I think from Sonic Adventure 2 to Sonic Next Gen, they actually used... what's the technique called when you actually have actors in the studio with...
Rotoscoping.
Mocap?
Mocap, that's the one. I think they actually used mocap for their animation, and that's why that's why they gave a more human proportion, so that translated easier. But
I remember I was recently watching a few cutscenes from Sonic Unleashed. And I was noticed like the way Eggman moves around. I was like, yeah, that definitely feels like mocap style, where he's like kind of moving around slightly. It's a hell of a lot different than how he moves around in Frontiers and Forces.
Yeah, but even in Adventure 2 they already did that. That's why you get all these little moments where Eggman like quickly scratches his butt and all that. Like these little details that actors add that animators wouldn't have thought of.
Oh yeah, SA2, yeah.
And even when you go with because there's been YouTubers who can change the camera perspective during cutscenes, and sometimes you see the characters continue animating even when the camera's not on them anymore. Which, if it's actually normally animated, that would never happen, because there's a lot of effort for nothing. But if it's all mocap, then why not?
Yeah.
So,
although, the issue though with Next Gen, and I can admit this, is that the human characters needed to be a bit more stylized. However, I don't think they should have gone in the extreme that Unleashed did.
No, that's too cartoony and picture-y for you.
Maybe a little bit. I would lean more towards something like Kingdom Hearts or anime-ish. Give them like big expressive eyes, or, they things like that. Especially Kingdom Hearts, because I think Kingdom Hearts has a really nice middle ground between realistic proportions, but also being a little cartoony. Like they have bigger hands and feet and heads.
So I guess like something more of the lines of like Sonic X style of humans would be something of your taste, I guess.
Yeah, something like that. And I think Shara from Secret Rings, like she hit that nice sweet spot for me.
Fair enough.
Like if you look at her design, I think that something along those lines would have been great.
The fun part of Kingdom Hearts 2 is that it's already designed to work with Sonic-style characters. I mean, Sora is meant to interact with Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse, who are pretty much Sonic characters in a way.
Yeah.
So they're deliberately already designed to fit that style.
Yeah. So it's like when you look at characters like Sora and Kairi and they're interacting with, say, like Pluto, Mickey, or Donald and Goofy, it doesn't really feel that out of place.
Yeah.
It's like, in fact, if anything, after a while, you just get used to it, and just it's like, yeah, it works. It just works.
Yeah, it's just there, you know. It's doing their thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and if I would say if Sonic wanted to do like a hard saga, and he does like a reboot, then I would say go for a tone like Kingdom Hearts, where it knows it's ridiculous and it rolls with it, but it also goes at it with this eagerness to tell a story.
That's music to my ears, absolutely. Amen to that.
It knows it's ridiculous, it knows it's absurd, it knows that it's larger than life, it knows it, and yet it still wants to tell this story because it believes it's a story worth being told.
Tongue-in-cheek and still earnest, yeah. Go ahead, Melty.
Yeah, I feel like that's, I think that's what Archie Sonic was doing as well. Like, when it started, it was like, oh, comical, then it got adventurous, and then during the Ken Penders and Carl Boyler's days, it was trying to be a little more serious, but I feel like when Ian Flynn got on board, then he kind of went more into the Kingdom Hearts side, you know, like, oh, yeah, the characters are a bit self-aware, like, yeah, something, you know, like, oh, yeah, that's kind of weird this and weird that, but fuck it, yeah, let's go on an adventure, you know, that kind of thing.
Well, the best way I can describe it is that Kingdom Hearts looks like a really bunch of excited children made it.
Yeah, children on crack.
It's like when you look at it and like its whimsicalness, but also this desire to tell a story. You know, you can't help but feel like it was just made by a bunch of really excited children.
That's why I like Sonic Adventure. It also feels like it's just made by people just excited about what they're doing. That's really... Anyway, someone in the chat asked Elise a question. What you thought of the new art style Elise had in the Sonic Channel art?
Huh?
The Sonic Channel had...
Oh, I actually really like it. In fact, it's my wallpaper on my desktop.
But yeah, is that kind of the art style you were looking for?
I like...
Little too chibi. Yes, he's just as tall as Silver now.
Maybe a little too chibi, but I do like her face. You know, and I do like the design of her dress. You know? Yeah. You know, with the big expressive anime eyes, that's kind of what I was thinking of. You know?
Alrighty.
So, and I don't mind like human characters maybe being a little bit shorter, you know, but it's like, yeah, because if they're too tall and they're standing next to Sonic characters, then that does make it a little awkward. Yeah. So it's like either you have to scale the Sonic characters up or you have to scale the human characters down, or maybe find a middle ground and do a bit of both.
Fair enough. Apparently even Merlina got art, which I didn't even know about. She looks even more chibier. Maybe that's because we see a full body shot.
Me neither.
She kind of looks like Cooking Mama, or like one of those really chibi games. So
really?
Yeah, it should be on screen as soon as the lag is over.
Okay, yeah, there's a lag with me, there's a delay with me, so...
Yeah, that's the problem with different time zones, yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a Cooking with Mama scenario there.
It's like Breath of the Wild!
Yeah, this is a random lollipop. Like, wait, isn't that from Kirby?
Typical how a Japanese lollipop looks like, I guess, or at least the cartoon one. But even Sonic looks chibi, so I guess it's like doubly chibi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, that's a little bit too chibi than what I was going for. I'd say that at least with Silver, you know, that's a little bit more towards what I was thinking.
Fair enough. But yeah, it seems like the entire picture went for an extra chibi style, because even Sonic doesn't look like his regular self.
Yeah, and granted, like all the characters in there look chibi.
Yeah. Also, what's with the deal with the hat that she's wearing? It looks like she's wearing one of those like old grandma nightcap wigs.
Yeah, it does.
It looks like a maid. It looks like a maid hat, you know.
Maybe. At first, I thought it was supposed to be like a chef hat, just at a weird angle. But I don't know. I'm kind of getting more like Red Riding Hood grandma head cap vibes from it.
Must have had some reason. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, cool. Nice that she still gets some intention.
Mm-hmm.
So,
now
shall
they
we
just
move
need to do Shara, and they will complete the trio.
and also Helen from Sonic X.
Oh yeah, best girl.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yes.
I guess going back to my script, it's that after saying all this, I just have one thing to say. Why do I care so much? After all, at the end of the day, this is just a video game series. It's meant to be fun, give a bit of excitement, kill some time, or goof around with some friends. So why do I, or any of us, care so much about this? I can't speak for everybody on this stream, or even everybody in Sonic Dissected, but for me, there was an underlying theme of hope in this series. In the past, characters would be taken to dark places, but you also had this notion that everything was going to work out in the end. Their designs gave a sense of whimsical fun, but also cool, larger-than-life, and epic. You felt a connection with these characters. You could understand their struggles, experience their joy and exhilaration when racing through levels, and root for the heroes to succeed. It was a unique world with its own lore, gameplay style, and a colorful cast of characters. It had ambition, it had heart and soul, it made you feel welcome, regardless of how crazy and absurd it could get. However, from Colors on, Sega seemed to be afraid of ambition. Not only that, but Sonic Team has changed dramatically over the years, and the same people who worked on the 2006 game, or the 2000 games, either aren't on the team anymore or very few are left. But I also believe there is a lack of heart and soul for the series. And I get it. When you put so much ambition into something and it just ends up failing and people criticize it left and right, it hurts. How do you cope? It's like, well, maybe just put in the bare minimum effort into it. Like, people can criticize it, and you don't have to feel too bad because you played it safe.
Yeah, possibly. But hey, they are trying to grow in some ways. So that's the frustrating thing. If they completely gave up, at least we could just shrug and like, okay, the series had a good run. But they continue to show, like, okay, we are going somewhere, maybe. Like, you get a generation, it's like, oh, they almost got the gameplay right, and then they lose it again, and they get forces, it's like, oh, this is actually epic. And then they lose it again, it's like, you keep almost doing something, and then they just leave it again, like,
It's almost like they get scared at the last minute.
Pretty much, yeah.
And like after a while, the whole statements of like, oh, the series is like, step in the right direction. Like even then, that starts to become like very repetitive, and it's just, what's the point of going on? That kind of deal.
Yeah, it's off on the right start. It's like, yeah, but Sonic has been on a treadmill, or it's like a track at best or a treadmill at worst. And the reason I say that is because with a track, you at least feel like you're running somewhere, but you're always running around in a circle. It's like, and then on the treadmill, you're not running anywhere at all. So, yeah, that's the best way I can describe it. And the reason for this phenomenon, I believe this started with Sonic the Hedgehog 2006. I didn't keep bringing this game up for no reason, nor because I like it so much, but because this game has left a mark on the series that needs to be addressed. It's been over a decade, but people still talk about this game. Why is that? I don't think it's because they like beating a dead horse. I think there's something more to it. Does it have flaws? Yes. Glitches galore? Definitely. A story that bit off more than it could chew in places? Oh yes. But this game had something modern games are lacking. Heart. In spite of all its flaws, there is no doubt a heart was in this game. It was reaching for the stars. It flew too close to the sun and got burned, but it still had the gumption to try. It's no wonder it's persisted to this day, especially with Chaos X and Project 06. Seriously, Chaos X, if you're watching this, you need to know that you are a hero to this fan base. Yeah. And yet, because of the game's failure, Sonic Team has done everything in its power to stay away from it. Yet the more they try to move away from it, the more they lose what made Sonic Sonic in the first place, and as it was the culmination of what had come before 2006. They saw the backlash and took away the wrong lessons, and now their games are empty and hollow, with only pretty colors and the occasional other playable characters. This makes me believe that Sonic will never be redeemed in the eyes of the public until next gen is redeemed. I really believe this. Though it lies in the ashes of failure, from the ashes could rise a fiery phoenix and a blaze of glory. If the series gets a reboot, then that could be the game's chance to be redeemed. Make either gameplay, make the gameplay tighter, do another draft or two of the story, and we could have a diamond of a game on our hands. Jay's reviews put it better than I could in his next gen video. The series has far more to gain than lose from taking inspiration from Sonic the Hedgehog 2006, and I couldn't agree more. Because as it stands, Sonic can't just keep getting off to a good start. He needs to get a good start and then needs to keep running on a trail, not a treadmill, not even a track. Doing so just keeps him from going anywhere. He needs to blaze a new trail if he wants to have a story worth being told. Because while Frontiers tries, it lacks heart and soul and ambition for a Sonic game. It does a lot of things right, and that should be considered for future games such as level design and gameplay mechanics, but I truly believe that if Sonic is to get back on his feet, we need to go back and rebuild the series from the ground up because its foundation is getting shakier with each passing game. While this may be wishful thinking, I don't give up so easily. If there's one thing the Sonic movies have shown me is that there is potential with this series that needs to be released. I understand if people walk away and decide Sonic is not for them anymore, but I'm not going down without a fight. Call me stubborn, call me insane, but I just don't like to give up. And that's it.
Sonic 06 really reminds you of the Star Wars prequels at the moment. Like, at the time, they were completely laughed away. Like, oh, they're just terrible. But then they get replaced by this sleek, much better performing, much tighter created new products that completely lack a soul and heart. And all of a sudden, everyone's just looking back like, you know what? I kind of like the broken things actually had a heart. Because it's way more interesting. The prequel movies have way more to say than the new Star Wars movies do. Sonic 06 have a lot more to say than the new games do.
I liked how Alex described it when you were talking about level design. I know you were talking about Alicia's level design, but the way she described it when she said that 06 is like a friend you hang out with who occasionally hurts you because he's clumsy. It's incompetent, a bit clumsy, but it means well.
That's one way to look at it, yeah. And I'm a fan of Sonic not because I want perfection, it's because it has a heart, because it has energy. So I'm not looking for perfection, I'm looking for that excitement. So I much rather have a kind of broken Sonic game that has its heart in the right place than I have a perfectly executed Sonic game that's empty and soulless. And I guess for me it's just like since I'm a writer, I really love story above all else. Like I don't even care that much about gameplay unless it's like really blasphemy there.
Really distracting. Yep. Yeah, call me insane. I don't care. But yeah, that's why 06 really drew me in, is because it was trying to tell its story. You know, even if maybe it needed another draft or two. It's like, but still, at least it was trying to tell its story and it went with it with full ambition. And so it's like, I can at least respect that. And I really appreciate that because it made me actually care about the characters.
All right, fair enough. Although we're not entirely in the same line, because I prefer Sonic Adventure 2 because it has more energy, but you're not a big fan of Sonic Adventure 2, so that's where we're...
I wouldn't say I totally dislike it. It has a lot of things there I really like. I do really like Shadow. I like Rouge. I like the interactions between the characters. It's just, it feels like the story is a little bit rushed now in retrospect.
Yeah, it's much more focused. It's much more like a page turner, constantly new plot twists and excitement.
Yeah, well, not even so much as a page turner. It's just like it feels like a speed run of a story.
Pretty much, yeah. It's really a roller coaster.
That's the best way I can describe it.
That's why I call it the roller coaster in my Dissected. Sorry, Melty Man, go ahead.
I was just about to say, with what I just really want with Sonic is kind of like the Kingdom Hearts style, or kind of similar to what Roger is more into, the Sonic Adventure. So adventure and stuff, things happening, and it's like, talking animals and humans, they're whatever. Fuck it, let's just have some fun with the adventure, and not just have it be all boring and stuff. Especially with with the meta era, how I've always found that so frustrating. It just feels like the characters are so, so detached. It just kind of feels like, why am I here? Oh, I'm just doing my job here. And even Sonic Frontiers feels like that kind of they still haven't quite gotten into like, oh, this is going to be the new direction for Sonic. Like, not quite, because one example, the voice direction. It's like how the characters are handled and everything. And yet nowadays we have like the commercials for Lego Sonic sets and Sonic Dream Team, where the characters are back to being more upbeat. So Frontiers just kind of feels more like it sticks out like a sore thumb with its weird one-and-done deal scenarios. But then again, that's nothing new for the Sonic series.
It always feels like Sonic Team is in a different place than everyone else. It's kind of fascinating. Anyway, I think all of us can agree that we really want a Sonic RPG game.
Sonic
Yeah.
Chronicles 2, baby.
I think that's actually more what I'm leaning towards. Is I actually vibe more with the RPG style of Sonic, because full disclosure, I never finished Breath of the Wild. Like I don't know how to explain it. I just couldn't get into the open world aspect of games. You know, even though this might sound hypocritical because I love playing Final Fantasy XIV, which is an online game, but there's something a bit different about Final Fantasy XIV compared to Breath of the Wild. And I think it's because Final Fantasy XIV has a fan base population. It feels lived in, and so you can interact with other players, and you can there's so much that you can do.
Yeah, that's the point. Like, some open world games are filled with villages and towns and stuff. Like Breath of the Wild as Sonic Frontiers is so empty. Like, I can't stand that. I much prefer Assassin's Creed
and
or
I think that's kind of where the issue comes in with me, is where it's like I'm not opposed to the idea of an open world game for Sonic, but it just feels so empty.
What's really frustrating,
I mean, if you're doing an open world simulator where it's like maybe like for just a fun game, say you have an open world simulator where Sonic could go to all the places that he's been to in the past. Like, I think that would be fun.
Oh, Lego Dimensions, basically, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. I've never played Lego Dimensions, so...
Well, I think at this point no one can, because if it's like, you know, console exclusivity and so many figures you gotta buy for it just to play as certain characters, is sad. Maybe one day there'll be an emulator to make it more easier, but who knows.
Anyway, one thing that's frustrating is that the Yakuza guy, the guy behind the Yakuza game, said he was gonna make a Sonic game. I was like, yes, that one! Like, it's an open world in a city with a lot of like story stuff, a lot of character stuff. And yeah, have a Sonic battle system again, less like Sonic Battle, Sonic the Fighter. That would be awesome. But yeah, sadly that guy left Sega, so it's not gonna happen anymore. Oh well, maybe we get something. I mean, we keep hearing rumors about Sonic Team considering Sonic Adventure, although I don't know what. I don't think a Sonic Adventure by the team of Sonic Frontiers is gonna be great, but we'll see.
Yeah, I've kind of just already given up on the whole hopes of like, oh, like Sonic Adventure 3 or Sonic Adventure Games Remastered, because like, yeah, it's, you know, you took too damn long with all these other titles, and it's like, yeah, I don't want it anymore. And considering the fact that Sega has a habit, well, at least a history of bad Sonic ports, then yeah, it doesn't really give me much hope for a remastered title.
Yeah, especially the recent one being Sonic Colors.
Yeah, well, that's kind of more of a port. Like, the remastered I'm more talking about is like Insane Trilogy Reignited Trilogy, you know, from the ground up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, like, with the reputation of bad ports, yeah, it doesn't really give me much hope that Sega is competent to handle that kind of from the ground up remaster style.
We'll see. We'll see. Oh, and someone in the chat calls me out that Sonic Frontiers already had a battle system. I know, but that battle system is really abstract because it's much larger than life. I like more like character to character, like Sonic fighting Shadow, more than Sonic fighting a giant titan. Like, it makes it more abstract. I kind of like it more when it's really like mano a mano or just like smaller scale. Like,
yeah,
I don't really.
That's another thing.
So basically,
that's another thing.
Sorry, I was trying to make so anyway, I was
talking over each other.
Elise, you're
you go first.
With Roger explained the whole battle system thing. I'm like, so in other words, he wants it like something more like Street Fighter and less Shadow of the Colossus.
Pretty much, yeah. Even though I do love Shadow of the Colossus, but yeah. And Elise, your turn.
What I was gonna say is that I feel like Sonic has too many moves in Frontiers. And I think maybe that's another issue why I didn't quite vibe with the gameplay. Is because I would prefer more if you had characters with their own skill sets.
Yeah,
so whereas with Sonic, I feel like he has too many, and then a lot of these moves you just get, at least from my experience, and I guess maybe it's because I'm not used to this kind of gaming, is that I just got lost in which ones activate. I just turned on audio combo, the combo, because eventually I just was kind of like, I don't know which buttons do which moves anymore. So
I can relate to that. Like, even playing through like Sonic Frontiers and having very mixed opinions about it. That's kind of why I don't really talk about it that much like I used to. But yeah, I can agree. Like, it feels like Sonic has too many move sets, and I don't know if I feel like that's kind of just me getting old, but maybe it's other people have issues with it. I don't know.
Yeah, well, you and I aren't that different in terms of it's like how old we are. So
yeah, but I'm like in my 30s right now, and yeah.
Fair enough. But yeah, I guess we all prefer Sonic Battle or Sonic the Fighters over Sonic Frontiers. Alas.
Yeah, or I kind of like I would like the whole Super Smash Brothers thing where you have characters with their unique skill sets and you have to figure out how you can use your skill set to defeat these other opponents.
Exactly, but yeah, Sonic Frontiers is not really designed from the ground up to have multiple characters. It's clearly just designed just for Sonic, and Amy, Knuckles, and Tails were just kind of added to it at the last moment to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't want to be a dead horse, but again, it's like Sonic has too many moves. When it's like if you had multiple characters, you could split those moves up among characters, like they did in Sonic Dream Team.
And fans always hate it when characters get nerfed in later games, so that's going to be fun. Either your characters are going to be too overpowered.
That's another issue. In this game, Sonic is really, really, really OP. But then in the next game, he's going to be nerfed, and so you're like, okay, does he just have these because they're on the Starfall Islands, which are connected to cyberspace, and so since he's away, he doesn't have those anymore?
I guess that's
so
what...
do you put him back at square one?
I'm sure people would argue that Sonic only became overpowered in Frontiers when they implemented the spin dash. Yeah, because, with all the crazy stuff you can do there.
But that's purely in terms of platforming, where in terms of battle, it's a different story. But yeah, agreed. We'll see, but yeah, we can always blame Starfall Islands for his moves. Sure, why not?
Especially the third island. Fuck the third island.
Blame it on everything.
Yeah, if I could say what my ideal version of Sonic's gameplay would be, is that as much as I hate Lost World, I think it was onto something when it gave Sonic parkour moves.
Yes, I love the parkour moves.
Well, it would set him apart from Shadow and Silver. Because he would be the parkour master, whereas Shadow and Silver, they don't necessarily need to be parkour masters because Shadow can warp, so he doesn't really need to, and Silver can fly. So,
yeah,
it's like those two, they don't necessarily need to be parkour masters, whereas with Sonic, it would make sense. And so, yeah, I think that it's like if you made Sonic's moves more like parkour, then that would work with his style, and also it would explain why he likes to spin dash.
Aiming to that. I'm all for bringing the parkour back. I love it, even though the Sonic Lost Worlds level design never really make good use of it. Anyway, I think it's about time we should be ending our video. Do you still have a lot of script left, or were we finished with your...
No, I finished it.
Alrighty, then I guess it's to final statements. Melting Man, you got something to say left about Sonic the RPG fighting game? I guess not. Elise, you're having any final thoughts?
I just want to say that this was a fun time. I really enjoyed watching your video, and I'm glad that you invited me on to do this.
Sure, why not? Perfect opportunity.
Yeah, and I'm sorry if I got some facts wrong or something.
Well, blame it on Melting Man. He's there to keep you in check.
No, I mean, in terms of, production for Frontiers and stuff, the thing is that I had written these notes down, but for the past few months or so, I was in school, so it's and I only look up research videos every so often. I did do so for this particular Dissected, but yeah. So I'm sorry if I got some things wrong, but I do appreciate you guys listening to my ramblings.
Sure. No problem. Don't worry about it. I mean, your school's more important than this silly talking at you.
Yeah, well, I've officially graduated. Whee!
Congratulations, indeed. Everyone in the chat, give her an applause.
Whee!
Right, so, Happy New Year. Welcome to 2024. And, yeah, I guess next time we'll have a proper live stream again with Sonic Underground and Sonic Fleetway again. So I'm trying to finish an animation this week. Hope it works. Knuckles Chaotix in Japanese minutes. And yeah, that's stuff upcoming. So we'll see you all later.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, Melting Man! Ah, fine.
You're back.
You guys leave just when my PC crashed, so that's why I suddenly disappeared.
All right. Final thoughts from Melting Man.
Well, final thoughts on what? I kind of lost track there.
About your thoughts on Sonic Battle open world game parkour stuff.
Oh yeah, the parkour stuff. I'd be up for seeing that be brought back and be more utilized. And I think what I was trying to say, have the controls be a lot more better and not have on the Wii U you have to hit the run button just to run and blah blah blah. I'm not sure how it plays differently on the Steam version or if there is a difference. But yeah, I just like to see like better, like see the parkour be brought back and be more, fully go out with it. Just have fun with it.
Indeed, there you go.
Yeah,
Well,
same here.
Amen to that, and everyone, see ya.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.
Adios.